Now Sweeney, Dwayne Sweeney! Sweeney's over!
Can you please hand it over to your captain, Dwayne Sweeney?
Welcome to Real Tales with Sweens. This episode I catch up with Ben Tapuai. Ben is someone I met through rugby when we played together for the Barbarians back in 2015. Ben has been playing professionally for over 10 years with a very impressive rugby CV, representing the Queensland Reds and Western Force in Super Rugby, Bath and Harlequins in the UK Premiership, and he also represented Australia when he was a member of the Wallabies from 2011 to 2013. During that time he won a Super Rugby title with the Reds and just this year a UK Premiership with Harlequins. During this podcast we discuss what it was like to win those titles, to represent the Wallabies, and also what it was like living away from family and having their first child during a global pandemic. We also discuss the friendships that rugby has formed, what it was like growing up in Australia with his Samoan culture, winning a club premiership with his brother, his decision to head to South Africa and play for the Sharks, developing through the Australian rugby system, and so much more. As always, the show notes will be available on Instagram at Real Tales with Sweens and the website realtaleswithsweens.com. The website will have all your links to listen on your favourite platform, as well as some epic content from all the guests. As always, the great people at Good George have a 15% discount available for all you listeners. Simply use their discount code REALTALES on their online store before checking out. You can find a link to their website on the realtaleswithsweens.com homepage. Lastly, special shout out to Ben for making his time available. It was great to reconnect, mate, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now all you listeners, join me as we get to know Ben Tapuai. Enjoy the podcast. Alright, so I'm sitting here with Ben Tapuai. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah. How they say it in Aussie, of the commentators?
Tapuai.
I always used to laugh at that, bro, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not how you say it, but... Yeah, so for those that don't know, I would have probably voiced it already in the intro, but Ben Tapuai was a Wallaby. He played for the Queensland Reds. He played for the Western Force. And he also played for Bath and Harlequins over in the UK. And he's actually fresh off a premiership with Harlequins. So that's something that we'll definitely touch on through the podcast. But yeah, and me and Ben actually know each other. We played against each other early on in Ben's career, and then we actually got to play together for the Barbarians over in the UK. So this is actually the first time we've seen each other since that. We had lunch the other day, but yeah, it's been a while between drinks. But thanks very much for coming on, Ben.
Nah, thanks for having me. No, it's pretty. It's good to see you got you got a few things going on for yourself. So yeah, cool.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this. A lot of the guests will know that my rugby background, and a lot of the listeners, will know my rugby background and would have seen that there's been a few rugby players come through the podcast, but it's the first international player that we've had from another country. So, pretty excited to hear Ben's journey and hear what it was like coming up through the Australian system and that. But I thought to start off with, it'd be pretty cool to hear about your, I suppose, reaching that pinnacle of sport that we all want to do, being able to represent your country, and you became a Wallaby at the end of 2011.
2011, yeah.
Yeah, can you just talk us through that?
So basically, we're pretty lucky at the Reds to get a grand final win against the Crusaders, and I guess that form kind of Robbie Deans was the coach at the time, and he rewarded me for kind of the year I had, and got the call up to the end of year tour after the World Cup. I was on call for the World Cup, and then I actually didn't know there was a 2-game tour, one against the Barbarians and one against Wales. So got the call up. Told my parents, they were happy as, I was happy as, and then played against the Barbarians, which to me I didn't know what the Barbarians was like, but we'll probably touch base on what the Barbarians were like, and then. Yeah, against Wales was my first cap, and I guess that was pretty cool because it was probably like my first time over in Europe, so I never knew, or UK, so I never knew what it was like. It was cold, and getting on the field was quite a funny moment. I probably never told anyone this, but I think I can't remember the score, but we were probably about 10 to 12 points ahead. And a player of the Wallabies kind of just, fake to pull a hamstring, because he knew that there was a few debutants on the bench, and he was actually playing fullback at the time. So I thought I was on the bench for the centre, and I just heard my name and I just popped straight up. And that because it was the last game of the tour, when you're injured, you got to kind of go and do all the rehab stuff and stuff. But he faked an injury for me to get Wallaby 853. So
nice. What a lad, eh?
Oh, awesome, mate. That was just
name.
it was.
Yeah. I won't make you name names.
No, I'm not, mate. I don't want to do that, mate. But no, I'm just glad I became a Wallaby, and I
played a few tests after that, though.
After that, in 2012, which was cool. Went on the spring tour, and then the year after, I didn't originally get picked for the Lions tour, but there was a few injuries after that, and then I got called into it as well.
What was that like as an experience, having the Lions down in Australia? Because I was lucky enough, I've seen 2 Lions tours come through New Zealand. In terms of when I was playing professionally, the first time they came down was 2005. We didn't play them, so we used to play them. The provincial teams used to play them. Now the Super Rugby teams do, but used to be the provincial teams, and we weren't drawn. So Waikato, we didn't play them, but just the whole hype around the tour, I was like, man, this is pretty special. And I was pretty gutted. I was a New Zealand Colt at the time, actually. So, and played against some pretty top Wallabies in the Australian side. We actually lost to them in our last pool game. They had, Drew Mitchell and Adam Ashley Cooper, Tatafu Plotinau. They're pretty gun team. Dan Halangahu was playing 10 So now he's coach of the Blues. So it was a good team. And so I remember thinking, it would have been awesome to have that opportunity. But I was lucky enough that I was still hanging in there and still playing when they came back in 2017. So, it's a long time between drinks. It's 12 years. Is that how it works?
Every 12 years.
Every 12 years they come down. So, I never would have thought I would have still been playing. I think I was 32 or 3 at the time. We played them for the provincial Barbarians. But it was actually quite cool to play them at that point in my career, because for me it had a lot more meaning because I'd seen what it was, I'd seen what it was like when I was younger. And I think if I got that opportunity then, I probably wouldn't have been as grateful for the opportunity that I got when I did get it, because I was like, it's pretty special, man. To get a chance to play against them. Is the hype the same in Australia?
Yeah, it's like just coming off the UK, it's almost like I've been to a couple of football games, and the crowds are mental. They're just next level. It's not like they don't care about, but they're just they're passionate about their side. And I think that's what Lions is, because Lions is like the pinnacle. So everyone plays for their countries, England, Ireland, Scotland, but the Lions is the next on top of that. So as you probably would have known in 2005, the supporters, they flock over, and it's a sea of red. And
it's crazy.
It's crazy. And in the UK, that's when the Lions play every 4 years. That's that year everyone talks about it. Everyone's like, who should be in the Lions? Who's this? Who's that? And it's pretty big, man. And I didn't get picked for any of the test games, but I think it was So I think it was after the first game, the Reds played a midweek game against them, and that was cool. That was at Suncorp. It was packed.
Did you get to play in that one?
Yeah. I started at centre.
Nice.
I started at
centre.
Who'd you mark? Tuilangi.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they actually had a pretty good side. That Owen Farrell, the Vunipola, Mako Vunipola was playing. Toby Fallatel. So they actually had, Stuart Hogg was at fullback.
Oh yeah.
So they
he played fullback when I played them in 2017.
So he's actually, they were actually a pretty decent side, and I was just like, man, I'm pretty sure against a side like us, they wouldn't play their big guns, or I don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe they're all.
I suppose the competition's hot though, right?
Yeah, true.
They're fighting for spots.
Yeah.
at that test level.
So
they
it
gotta
was
play.
quite special because like I'll never play against the Lions ever again because they come once every 12 years. So I was just fortunate. Yes, I didn't play against them against the Wallabies, but I got to experience playing at the Reds with them. So yeah, it's pretty special as a opposition, but I guess being in the UK, it's like I know what it's like for the players to get called up to. Like it's like a life-changing moment for them because they announce it on TV. Like they go alphabetical order, so like everyone and because they send out, I think maybe 33 or 34 get picked.
Yep.
But like 45 letters go out to the players and say that you're in contention to play. So whoever gets the letter, it's like, and if you didn't expect it, it's even more like,
whoa.
Yeah. And like people get their families in front of the TV and they're just like, they're just waiting. They're just like,
they capture all those images, don't they? Right? Like quite often you see, especially nowadays with social media, you see the cameras there in the house and they get named, and it's like, surely you would think you're going to make it if the cameras turned up at your house. But
that's true.
But I suppose if you're 45 letters are going out, they might actually have cameras everywhere. Right?
So it could be. So like I think no one knows, obviously, except for the coaches that named the team. But it's almost like it's almost like an NBA draft kind of thing because they just like everyone's so nervous. So like we had a couple of Quins boys that got letters, and that week I've never seen them more nervous than anything. They were just like, because everyone talks about the announcements, and because we were going all right with Quins, they were like, surely you're in, and they not convinced themselves, but like because they hear it from us or the boys, you know what it's like in the 40 culture. Everyone's like, oh, here comes a couple of Lions coming in the room, and they just start laughing. They're like, do you know what I mean?
But it makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse. And then when their name doesn't get called, it's almost just like they all. It's almost like they weren't expecting it, but it would have been nice to get called out. Do you know what I mean? So
I think it's like that with anything in sport. Like when you're driven and you're passionate about what you do, and you want to make that, that top team, and for a lot of those guys, that it's almost like an unrealistic dream too, right? Because when you think about it, being the best in your country is an outstanding achievement that very, very few people in the world, be a tiny percentage of participants in sport get to represent their country. It wouldn't even be 1%, I would imagine, on average. But then you go and put that across, what was it, 4 nations? Four or 5 nations. Like, and then you get picked out of that
that's
again.
That's the best of the best.
It's best of the best in Europe, or in the UK. So, it's pretty special, and it's for me it was awesome because we thought the same thing. So I was playing for the provincial Barbarians. I think we had a total of, I don't know, it wasn't even 100 Super Rugby caps, and I had 80 or 81 of them.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So we had like a very, I say undergun team, but on paper we did, but there was a lot of very good players in there that have gone on to be very good Super Rugby players, and a couple of All Blacks out of it as well. But I remember we played the Lions, and we thought, surely they'll just turn up and put out a bit of a lower strength team. And then, they named the backline of like Laidlaw, Sexton, Ben Teo, Watson, Stuart Hogg at fullback. It was stacked. Yeah, it was a very good side. And it was like, it's going to be a tough day at the office. But we actually almost won, which kind of, I can't remember what the score was, but we were within a try. It might have been 13-8 or something. And we had a chance to score with about 2 minutes to play, and it still haunts me to this day. We practiced this move all week, and we had one job to do. We knew the way they were going to defend it, so we're like, yep. And then I just saw it unfolding. I was like, we've got them. Like the right guy bit on me, went out the back, and I was like, we're going to score. Turned around and did the opposite of what we practiced and threw the ball over the top. They recovered, bundled us out in the corner, and they managed to hold on. We couldn't get the ball back off them. I think we might have had one more crack, but
But that was the moment.
That was the one. That was the moment to put us in. And in sports, like, made up of moments like that, right?
Yeah.
That's why I love it. That's 100%. Why it's so cool. But I want to go back a little bit. So in terms of, you were a Wallaby, you're Samoan.
Yeah.
But you were born in Australia, right?
Yeah.
You weren't brought up in Samoa. Was the Samoan culture big in your household?
Yeah.
And in your family?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
So my grandparents moved over from Samoa and pretty much bought all of their children. And so it's my mum's family. So my mum's one of 7. So they all came from Samoa, and they pretty much brought Samoa with them into Australia.
Yeah.
So it was quite weird for me because I used to like go to school and have like a Western world, you know, meet, greet, and like be like, talkative and like outgoing and stuff. And then I come home and then I have to like change to this like Samoan world where, you know, everyone's really respectful, and because like no one could speak English. That's why I can speak Samoan, because everyone had to communicate in Samoan. And because my grandparents were the ministers, or were ministers of a church, when I was born till when I was 15 till I left to the Gold Coast, I was at church every Sunday, choir practice every Saturday, and we had Saturday school and all that stuff. So everything was in Samoan. So yeah, my upbringing was a lot of both worlds, but I'll probably say I was probably more Samoan than kind of Aussie, because every time I went home, it was just everything was just in Samoan, or I had to do the Samoan way and all that stuff.
Did you invite a lot of your like school friends and I suppose like, you know, like European people back into that culture?
Not
home?
Really, not really.
Do you wish you did it more?
Yeah, I think I wish I did it more, because I think they probably would have seen that side of me, because like I was a real shy kid back at school, but like only because if I knew someone was Samoan, and that's my I guess the common thing between us. But if you weren't Samoan, I'll be like, oh, hey, how you going? And that's it. Like I wouldn't talk, because I didn't know how to communicate, because my life was different on this when I go home. So like, you know, guys, didn't know how to communicate or how to make conversation, just to like bounce off ideas or bounce off.
Yeah, just have a yarn.
Just have a yarn.
Yeah.
Just have a normal yarn. Or like even like I wish I was more talkative and tell them about what I did back home. Because they'll probably be more intrigued in that.
Perspective.
But I thought that like doing that would probably like, oh, this guy's different, so he'll just like he like, do you know what I mean? Like he just won't be. He's not the same as me, so he's like, don't worry about you.
A part of that is human nature, right? Yeah. Like we all want to be a part of something and to fit in.
Yeah.
And when you're brought up in a different culture, it can be quite daunting to kind of expose that, because you're vulnerable, because you're like, are they going to judge me because of the way that my life is lived at home?
Yeah.
And I think definitely the world's changing, right?
Because 100%.
Like, you know, we see it all the time, and we see it especially here in New Zealand in terms of how diverse the country is and how many different ethnicities that we do have living here, and how accepting Kiwis are in general of culture. Like it seems to be, you know, and I suppose, you know, media, social media, television, like all that plays a big part in that, because then people can see it for what it is, and then I think people, it's a little bit of a better position now for kids growing up in that situation to 100%. Be like, this is what it's like for me at home, but I also enjoy doing this with you guys at school, but this is the world I live in.
100%. And I think all that kind of changed for me. So I was lucky enough to get a scholarship up to the Gold Coast, and I went to the Southport School. And man, I
strong rugby school, eh?
Southport. But I struggled because I was just this kid going to church every Sunday, and then and I was the only Samoan kid there. It is like private school. Like they teach you got to wear high socks, shorts, collared shirt, a kubra. Like you got to do and I'm just like, I went to a state school back in Melbourne where you can get away with like runners, and you know, just like it wasn't that strict back in Melbourne because of the school I went to, but this was like just different. And because I was a boarder, and I was only 15, man, and so from Melbourne to Gold Coast,
that's a big flip in your world, right?
Man, it just. But then when I started to like open up of how I lived, like the boys that I boarded with, they'll be like, man, that's cool. Tell me more. And I was just like, hey? They were just like, man, what, like, tell me more about your family and stuff. So as I opened up, I was just like, that's when I started to realize, like, oh, maybe it's not that bad to actually express about yourself. And so I really got along with like all the country kids, because like I would listen to their story and what they do on the farm. Because I was a city boy. I was like living in Melbourne, Samoan culture. So it was cool to like, they were like, oh man, you should come out to the farm and we'll go shooting. I was like, shooting? Bro, is that even legal? Like, and they were just, you know what I mean? Just out of it stuff. And they were like, yeah, we'll go wake up 5 a.m. Like, that's when I knew like the farmers kids, like they're just hard working kids, man.
Yeah.
And like, it's probably similar to New Zealand. Like, they're just, you can tell a farmer where he's like, pretty like simple dressed, but like when he gets onto the rugby field, he just goes and goes, because it's just drilled in from when they're young. They're just like, because their parents told them to like get up morning, bang, you got to do this, got to do that, and I was just like, wow, man, that's cool. So it was kind of cool to, I guess, learn that about myself and learn. So like, I guess how I am now, where I can conversate with anyone, probably took me back to that moment of opening up, because I struggled for the first kind of 4 terms in school. Like the first two and a half, like I was struggling, man. I was crying at night. One of my parents, because like there was no one there. But yeah, it was cool to experience that, because that's what I learned about myself, kind of moving forward.
It's cool that, because everybody's like a product of their environment and what you're brought up in, and what you're around, and you just kind of adapt and mold into who you are. And I really enjoy that, and meeting new people, and rugby was amazing for that for me. And then even school as well. So I came to school here in Hamilton. I went to Hamilton Boys High, massive school compared to coming from a small town in Morrinsville, even though it's only 20 minutes away. I remember when I first came to Hamilton, I was scared to walk across the bridges, across the river, like it was a big thing for me to go into the city. I was like, whoa, like even though I grew up 20 minutes away, but it's still that,
feeling, bro.
I can still feel that. And then I could only imagine what it was like for you to grow up in the city, and then that to be flipped, and then all of a sudden you're living with all these farm boys on the Gold Coast, and they're talking about going out hunting and that. And it reminds me a little bit of when I started to make rep teams and was playing with a lot of people like out of Auckland, and city kids and private school kids up in Auckland, and then they're like, what, you milk cows? Like, for like pocket money in the holidays and stuff, and they're just blown away. But I hated milking cows, but to them it was cool, but you always kind of, the grass is always greener, you want what you don't have, and you're interested by other things until you kind of try it, and then you're like, oh, actually milking cows ain't that bad, ain't all that. Or some people love it, they're like, oh, this is wicked and it's what I want to do. But I suppose that's life and experience those different situations. But it is cool for you to hear that, and to share what it was like for you growing up in Australia, because I think definitely at the time that you probably grew up to, it wasn't as accepted as well as it is now. Like it is a lot more diverse in Australia now compared to what it probably was when your parents came over. So did they ever talk about what it was like for them when they first came across?
Man, like I think like my parents, when they came over, couldn't speak English. To be honest,
kids can be cruel, right?
Yeah,
like,
man.
as well,
hard out, bro. So when they first moved over, like my uncles and more my mom's brothers, they just found like factory jobs. My dad used to work with my uncle. They just worked in a factory, just because you didn't have to speak to anyone, and they couldn't speak English. And then my parents got into like tram driving in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like as their English started to get better. But I think they only got that through because they met another Samoan that was like came over the same time. It's just like, it was weird, man. But like there was a lot of like I guess, like you said, like there wasn't a lot of acceptance back then, so they had to go through all of that. But I think because my family's like real religious, they just looked past that and they just concentrated on, you know, what was important about life and, you know, and God, and they kind of ingrained that into us as well as kids. But yeah, it was. I'll say it's pretty tough because, man, if like going over to Europe, and if you go to France and you can't speak English or you can't speak French,
Yeah.
bro, you are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're just like they don't get that, and they're hard nosed.
Yeah.
Like, so I can only imagine what my parents were like. Were just trying to communicate, no English. That's why they had to go factory jobs to start off with. That's why they had to, like, they only knew, you know, another Samoan that did tram driving, and then they did that. So they bounced from jobs to jobs. So they're like they didn't really tell us, but us kids can, like, we
You
knew.
can feel it, right?
Yeah, we knew how hard it was for them. And everyone's got their story, but, you know, if everyone will kind of tell you how hard it is and stuff, but everyone's got different paths. So you just, I guess, you just respect that. And I that was, and it was tough back then. And I'm just like, man, I was lucky enough to go to France just for a holiday. And if I order a coffee and they're just like, nah, you're not speaking French, I'm just like, shoot, that's like, can only imagine what they had to go through just to, because they would have copped a bit of flack. But
it's interesting. Like, I often think about it. It's interesting hearing how what it was like, you know, back then, and I think about it now here in New Zealand in terms of we're a lot more accepting of the Māori culture now, but it was repressed for such a long time. And, like, I don't want to get, like, political on it or anything. It was just the way it was, and it's the way the world was. And I think we've realized that it wasn't right, and that's what you do. You learn and adapt, and now 100%. It's become more accepted. And you see the same in Australia right now. Before big sporting events, they do the Aboriginal speech at the start of a game. They never used to do that.
No way.
But now they're, like, starting to accept what the culture and understand that, well, hang on, like, yes, we did act incorrectly and it was not fair the way we were, but we're not going to stay that way. Let's make a difference. And and I think that's human nature. Like, you if you don't make a mistake, you're not living the way I see it. Like, people make mistakes all the time. And even, you know, like, as countries and governments and things like that, they make mistakes, right? And you learn from it and you change it. And we talk about this a little bit at work with the Water Boys. So we've been trying to find like people that speak Te Reo for some of the roles that we've got. But it's hard to find because it was like, you know, my mum's Māori, but she never spoke a word of Māori because it was beaten out of her dad at school because he wasn't allowed to speak it. So he never let his kids learn Māori because he was like, no, because he knew that he was protecting them for when they went to school. So he didn't want them to go through what he went through. So he just was like, all right, you speak English. And so basically pretty much got repressed for like a generation and then into my generation. But I think if you go another 10 years time, we'll have bloody Germans living in New Zealand speaking Te Reo fluently, probably because of it's become more accepting and it's become more of a focus of society here in New Zealand that, hey, we should be really proud of this and proud of this culture because it was, you know, it's what birthed New Zealand. And yes, it wasn't right what we did, but now we're making it.
We can change it.
We're making a change, you know, and making it different. But yeah, it's cool to see that there is that acceptance for it now. And yeah, like I said, I'm definitely not getting like political on it, but it's just the way it was, and I think it's good to see it change. Yeah,
and I think like even with the Wallabies as well, you know, they've got like an Aboriginal jersey around like if you want to. So when I played back at the Reds, we had like there was like an Indigenous round, and everyone in the Aussie Super Rugby had like a special jersey they created and stuff. So I just think that like it's obviously it was still accepting into Australian culture, and you're always going to get, you know, a small bit of Australia that's still like, you know, we created this land and blah 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 blah, which is fine, but that's we want to concentrate on the actual the percentage that are actually
the
accepting
inclusion
the
of
culture.
it, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, because what they're saying too is not wrong. Like
No.
what they did come and create has helped the
Yeah.
country grow.
Yeah.
But but at certain times along that path, there was a lot of people that suffered because of that.
100%, yeah.
But now it's time to go, okay, yep, we've achieved this, but yes, we neglected that, so let's support that more.
Yeah.
Let's, and then, people forgive and forget.
Yeah.
As long as it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So that's pretty. Cheers for sharing that. It's cool. And I quite often, think I really enjoy different cultures and the way that people live and are brought up and stuff like that. So I remember meeting, because I never really met any Pacific Islanders. Like there was no Pacific Islanders in Morrinsville when I grew up.
Yeah.
It was like Māoris or Pākehās pretty much. That was it. And then when I started to through the journey of rugby, and then I was played Northern Regions team, and the whole backline was from Auckland except me. So I was like the one kid, and there's a heap of Pacific Island boys in there, and I'm like, man,
you're the one.
But then seeing their culture and because it got billeted with them and stayed in their homes and things like that, and just seeing their culture and the way the boys acted at home was. I loved it because there's so much respect for their elders. And that was how I was brought up. We were very much like that. It was big from my parents to respect your elders, and I'm trying to pass that on with my boys now too. Just good old fashioned handshake, look them in the eyes, that kind of thing.
100%.
And, always make sure you get up, open the door for women, all that. That was how I was brought up. But just seeing they're just so staunch in it, they literally it's. I was brought up that way, but I'd still make mistakes. But you see, you go to the Island Boys' homes, and the way that they were, they never made a mistake. It was just, it was so. It's actually quite beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And then I've I really enjoy all the Pacific Island boys I played with throughout my career, and just being, I think, seeing that at a young age when I was 16, 17, playing with those guys, get an understanding of their life, and I was so grateful to be invited into their home for a few days or a week or whatever at different times it was, and to see that and to learn that at that age, then it gave me really good respect and perspective for what it was like further down the track. And you even see it within the team. So as it got further into professional rugby, like a guy that springs to mind for me was like Tim Nana Williams. When he first come in, the way that he would interact and act around guys like Ms. Muliaina and things like that, like people that were his senior, just how respectful he was to them, and there was that cultural thing coming through. So it's cool to see that.
I think it's important that it's like when you experience that and you get to know people, it actually reflects on your rugby and you as a person, and you always learn new stuff every day. But when you learn stuff like that, and then you learn it from a bloke you're going to play next to, you actually start getting closer. And then when you get on the rugby pitch, it actually makes you play better with that person, because you've got a understanding of who he is and he's got an understanding of who you are. It makes you think, oh, sweet, I'll go extra 5% for you. Do you know what I mean? It makes you and you probably don't know it at the time, but then when you look back, you're just like, yeah, he was awesome because I got to know him like this. He got to know me like that. And then you start remembering, and you have a laugh, and that's how you get along. I think that's what rugby teaches you as well. When you do all that stuff. So it's it's awesome experience.
I do want to talk about I suppose coming through the system in Australia, but I just talking to this has got me thinking and about culture and stuff. I want to jump forward to 2015 when we got to play for the Barbarians together.
Yeah.
And we talk about culture, and you talk about that, seeing how people interact and building that respect and that relationship with the guys that you're going to play next to. The Barbars, we get a week before we played.
Everyone meets everyone on the or Sunday.
But it's amazing how quickly you can build that, with like-minded people.
Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Was that your first experience with the Barbarians?
Yeah, so that London game, that was I was lucky enough to 2 weeks before.
Yep.
We played Japan in Tokyo, but they named it the World 15.
Yep. Yeah, because the Barbarians don't travel, right?
Yeah. Or so it was.
Or certain.
It was the head guy at the time. He was like 90 odd years. He normally goes to every Barbarians game, but because he couldn't travel because he was pretty old, they just changed it to
Change the name.
To World 15.
So he didn't miss one.
So he didn't miss. So, but every time it was because he was from England, every time it was in England, it was the Barbarians. So yeah, man, that whole experience, man, it actually taught me how why you play rugby, because as you know,
Takes you back to being a kid, eh?
bro. When you play, everything's so serious. You got to eat well, train well. You don't make your times. You start worrying about all of this stuff. But then at the end of the game, it's 80 minutes that you have to play. And even now, like I went for a run and I didn't make my times, and I'm just like, but 10 years ago, I would have been like, what the hell's going on? I'll go do extras and blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? Like you start getting like worried about all that stuff. But then, man, the Barbarians will teach you, man. If you like build relationships during the week and you have a beer and you have a yarn, or 2 or 3 beers or whatever you want to do,
or 30.
you get to start to know people, and then obviously on the Monday you start training, and then you have a beer at night, and then you start to know, and it's not even like
don't even talk rugby.
You don't even talk rugby. It's just who you are, where you come from. Even if it's a guy that's played 100 caps for their country, you still want to know. You got family, you got kids, and then like if you've got kids and you got kids, that's your common ground. How old are your kids? Yeah. And if they're newborns, it's just like, man, how's your sleep? Because but you can't say that to a person that hasn't got kids, so you got to try and find a common ground with different people. And I think that's what Barbar's taught me in terms of just trying to like know people, even though they're like played however many games, superstars. You take all that away. You actually want to know who they are as a person.
Yeah, I'd hate to think how many test caps were in that group of players that we had in that team, like guys like Carl Heyman, Ali Williams, Bucky's Boita,
Reef Shark,
superstars, bro. Yeah, of the game.
Only guys that like when we were kids, like you see them play, and you probably played against them once in your career, or a couple of times, but you never got to know them.
Nah.
And then you like, that was cool, man. Like for me, like the biggest person on that tour was Carl Heyman for me. Like I never knew. I obviously knew who he was. I just never knew him as a person, because when I started playing Super Rugby, he shot off to UK.
Yeah.
So I never got to know him. I was like, oh well. Yeah. And you never ever think. I'll never ever 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 thought that I'll be in the same rugby team as Carl Heyman. He was just like, man, this is cool.
He's a weapon, hey.
Well, on the field or off the field?
Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, because I remember, like, turned up first night and I thought, like, surely, I kind of assumed, and you hear from the outside, and like, the team has a good time. You have some beers and that. So we turn up the first night. We're playing Samoa before they go into the World Cup in 2015. So it's like they're a week out from the World Cup starting. And then it was like basically all the teams in the UK and Europe was their last hit out before they kicked off, and Samoa had come over early, and there's a good Samoan team, bro, and
that's
gun.
The best of the best.
Yeah, it's probably like one of the best Samoan teams they've had in years.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, we got there and I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be a big game, and we had a big night on the first night, and I was like, oh, I kind of expected that. That's what Barbars is about. Yeah. Then it kind of flowed on to Tuesday, and then I was like, oh, okay. Then it was Wednesday, and I think it was me, you, and Christian Lelefano, and we're sitting somewhere on a Wednesday night at like 2 a.m. having cocktails. Do you remember that? Yeah, that little bar around the corner. And we're sitting there like, oh, it's Wednesday. Like, do you reckon we're gonna like hit it on the head soon? And we're like, no, surely this will be us. Like we'll go hard tomorrow. No drinking tomorrow. Yeah. Sure enough, a few more beers. We went for dinner or something.
Yeah, we went to like Burger Lobster.
The next night.
I don't know.
Beers there, and then we went to Captain's Run, and then Carl Heyman, speaking of weapons, I think he had, what do you have? Like 42 beers after captain's run.
Man, and I remember him walking in.
And then he got no, he didn't. You got man of the match, but he played unreal.
Bro.
I remember seeing a kick chase go down, and we were like, I got up off the ground, and I just seen like Carl Heyman like running past all the backs in the kick chase,
bro.
And I was like, he had like 42 beers yesterday.
But that's what I mean. It just taught me like, all right, bro, you don't have to make your times during the week.
Yeah, but there is something to that though, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not sustainable.
No,
100%.
No,
you can't
100%.
drink piss all week,
No.
play at that highest level.
Yeah.
But we were all in good nick. We'd all been, you would have been just finished Super Rugby.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
Highlanders had just won. They beat the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Because Jamie was coaching.
Yeah.
And then Hans came over, and then so I was at the end of preseason in Japan. So like super fit, put all my weight back on though in like a week. Yeah. But like we were all in prime nick, so like 1 week is not going to do enough damage.
100%.
Like it's just power of the mind and being able to go, all right, splash some water on the face, boots on, switch on, let's go. And then we went out there and we dominated and probably outlasted them in terms of fitness. And we hadn't even slept all week.
Crazy, man. And I just remember the bus ride in and just looking at Christian and just like putting my hands on my head and going, like just my head down. I was just like, man, what did I do the whole week? Like just worried about like,
I'm going to embarrass myself.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was like the same feeling. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go out here in front of like 50,000 people.
Bro.
Or so, it was more than that, wasn't it? It was a huge crowd.
I didn't even look at crowd because I was just concentrated on myself. Like, just how bad this could be if this doesn't like go to plan.
Yeah, but I think there's something to that too, because I've had this happen a number of times through my career. Not drink all week and then play, but stuff goes wrong beforehand.
Yeah.
And then you have the most phenomenal performances because everything's heightened.
Yeah.
You're like hard on alert. I remember the Chiefs went over, played the Brumbies, and all our flights got cancelled. We ended up landing in Canberra like the night before the game at like 9 o'clock. We did our captain's run on the way to hotel. At that time, we'd been sitting in an airport for like 2 days. Because we actually went to leave 2 days early so that we could actually have a day in Canberra.
Oh, yeah.
And do our captain's run. So stay Thursday.
Yeah.
Get
captain's
up,
run through. Yeah.
bit of a primer, have a captain's run, stay again, play, stay, and then come home. Turned into like getting there at like 9 o'clock the night before. Mortlock's 100th game, so we're like, they're pumped, you know.
Oh, true.
And then we're like, and we went captain's run, couldn't catch a cold. It was horrendous. And then we're like, oh no, went to hotel, then warm up. I dropped the ball 4 times in the warm up myself. And then like everyone was like, couldn't catch anything.
Yeah.
Like, I was so bad. And I remember I was on the bench and I remember sitting there, I was like, oh my God, we are going to get thumped. Like, this is going to be so embarrassing. We ended up putting 50 on the Brumbies.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, Sivi Vadu, like, just had an unbelievable game. Like, one of his, you know, he has those games, well, he had a number of those games, but that was one.
Just turned it
I remember, like, right at the start of the game, we had a line out and I heard the call because it was just in front of the bench and it was like a 5-man play and we would, you know, throw a miss pass from 10 to 12 and he had a forward inside outside with a bit of a back door. And then City's meant to be out there and like an inside ball off the centre kind of thing.
Yeah.
He intercepted the ball from halfback to 10. He was standing like outside 12 and he just come running through everybody, intercepted the ball just before the 10 caught it, went like 70 metres and scores under the post. And it was like, oh, okay. Like, City's on. And then that just, the whole night, everything stuck.
That just set the mood.
It just set the tone. And then, like, we just were catching these passes that we shouldn't have and everything. But I think a lot of it was the fact that we were so on edge because we had prepared so badly
during the week.
Yeah, during the week that we were just heightened and then we were on. I think it can be, you know, obviously sometimes it could be detrimental and go the other way, but at certain times, sometimes it's what you need to make the difference.
Yeah, it's and like you said before, it's not really sustainable.
No.
Like, you can't prepare like that.
You can't train like
the
shit.
whole and then be like, and then
on the man.
Hard out, bro.
Yeah, but that Barbars week that was pretty wicked and like real cool group of people.
Yeah.
I had Adam Thompson on the podcast a few episodes ago now, but Yeah, he's kind of like the king of Barbars rugby, the way he is.
But he's played heaps of games for the Barbars.
You can see why too, though. Like in the environment, he's the perfect kind of person.
Yeah.
He's so laid back, so cruisy.
Yeah.
Bit of a lone wolf, like kind of just floats around.
100%.
Yeah, just kind of turns up, and I think it just suits him down to the ground. And he's got that ability to just turn it on.
Yeah, 100%. And like I think he was like, when was it? 2000 and was it? I can't remember. 2012, 2013. He kind of stopped playing for the ABs, and then literally.
Yeah, well, 2011, I think he did He was in that World Cup.
World Cup. So yeah.
When they won.
Yeah.
That might have been.
Was that his last? But I just remember.
It might have been around that time.
I just remember because
he went to Aussie after that, played for the Reds.
Yeah, I played with him at the Reds, and then he went to Melbourne straight after, and then he went to Japan, I think. Yeah, but in, like when you meet guys like that, and you meet guys like yourself, and you just connect, it just goes a long way. Like I haven't seen you since then, but then we just kick it off where we left off because you just know that's the memories or that's the connection that we had back then, which is cool, man. And that's why I love the rugby journey and man. I'm just laughing at all the memories.
Yeah, it was a hell of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And some awesome characters in that team. Like we talked Adam Thompson there, but guys like Luke Burgess and Luke Jones.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Tom English. Like there's some lads that were on that trip.
Mikey Harris.
Yeah, Mikey Harris. Yeah.
Shoot.
Oh, Mikey Harris. Kicked a goal to beat the Lions too, didn't he? When they toured down in Aussie in the first test.
No,
did he hit one? Was it the Lions?
No. It was against Wales.
Oh, was it Wales?
Wales.
Same colour jersey.
Yeah.
Close
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like just and then see Mikey's someone that I grew up. Well, he's a couple of years younger than me, but kind of grew up through the scene here in New Zealand.
Yeah. He's at North Harbour.
Yeah, he was at Harbour, and then he went. I remember he went across to Aussie, and I didn't think much of him in terms of a player here, and this is something that we might as well kind of jump into it now in terms of the Aussie system. But something I found in the Aussie system is that I don't know whether it's because there's not as much depth as what we have here. I think that's kind of quite obvious. Aussie's a big country, but there's so many big sports, and rugby isn't the biggest. We're here, rugby's everything. It's what we do. It's what we're brought up with. But in terms of Aussie, what I kind of noticed is at that Super Rugby level, if a coach makes a decision to select somebody, they let them ride out poor form. So they let them play themselves into form, build confidence over time. Where I find here in New Zealand, like you don't front, you're gone like very quickly because there's a big player pool, right? And it's kind of a big fight to get to the top. And when you get your chance, like you got to take it right there and then. But I find in Australia, and I even think of like Quaid as a good example. Like he was a phenomenal player, super talented, but very inconsistent in his first couple of years of Super Rugby. Moments of brilliance, but like in New Zealand, probably wouldn't have lasted. They would have been they would have picked the consistent guy. They would have found, like a consistent guy and put him there. And then it would have been like, oh, sorry, mate, you're too inconsistent. But through that perseverance and giving him time to build confidence, to build relationships with Will Guinea, yourself, Ant Whainga, that was like the awesome foursome, pretty much in 9 to 13. You guys played a lot of rugby together, and no doubt probably what we're talking about had really good relationships with each other. But because you were allowed to play together and build that time and go through a little bit of shit to then come out the other side of it and be stronger for it and then push on. Like, is that? Yeah. Do you find that in Australia?
I think the biggest, you touched on it before. The biggest problem is that we're competing against cricket, AFL, rugby league, and union, and so
you'd sit at the bottom of that list too, right? Rugby,
100%. So it's not so much. We're not. So if you're at the Reds, you're not competing against the Waratahs because you're not poaching Waratahs players. It's league poaching us, or we're poaching them. So it's almost like it's almost like a cock off. Like who can pick who. But league in Australia is massive. it's like because
It's crazy,
because it's always on. It's free to air TV. Like,
Oh,
so
is it?
it's, yeah,
Yep.
so it's and like rugby, it just changed now, but it was on Fox Sports, so you had to pay money to
watch it.
to watch it. So it was almost like
You're
like
cutting off a lot of your fan base straight away.
and you almost looked at the it's almost looked at the like your
Private school kids.
like a posh
Yeah.
sport because
Yeah.
you had to pay. But I think
It is a private school sport in Australia, though. Eh?
yeah,
Like, it's
but I think
more common in private schools.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest problem, but the grassroots rugby is probably not strong enough to be to produce, you know, wallabies and stuff. But back in when I was back at when I was back in Melbourne, like the Queensland system, the New South Wales system, the grassroots rugby, that was all about the club rugby because, you know, New Zealand, we didn't have NPC, so everything was about clubland. Like you just played for your club. If you didn't play super or you played on a Friday night, you got 20 minutes, you got to go back and play club the next day. And that's what made club rugby so big. When I was playing back in I finished school in 2007, so 2008 to 2014, between those years, like everyone that played Super Rugby, you just go play. And if there was a bye, you would go back and play club rugby.
Club.
And like it was cool for me. Like my brother was playing at club, so like I just knew that I wasn't ever gonna have an opportunity to play with Rex with my brother. So I went back, even if I played half an hour or 40 minutes on the bench for the Reds, and my club back in Brisbane was Sunnybank, I'll go and play. Probably didn't help he was captain because he started ringing my ear about it, but like it was like it was cool to go and like not experience because I knew what club, because I played club before, but like you kind of when you play at the Reds, you kind of forgot about, you know, guys working 9 to 5, plumbers, tradies, and the chat, man, it is class. Like I love the stories that come out. Probably a bit like earlier we were talking about when you get to know people, and when you go back to club, like, and then they see you, they'll just like, oh man, blah blah blah. But like they saw me, they saw how cruisy I was, and they were just like, man, I never would have expected you to even chat to me. Like that's how they'll, because they'll think that you're here, and because you've played like 60 games for the Reds, they think that you're here. So like, but then I used to go, mate, hey mate, what's your name, blah blah blah, and just get to know them a little bit more. But yeah,
do you
man,
find that weird when people say that to you? The amount of times people come up to me like, oh fuck, I thought you were a dick, or I didn't think you would talk to me, and you're real down to earth. And it's like, well, just because I play rugby doesn't make me a different person.
But I think with them, I don't know, they've probably experienced different.
Yeah, they might have experienced.
And they've probably like heard of other rugby players being like, so they just put all of us into one big group, like, oh yeah, they're arrogant and they're blah blah blah. But like when you,
it's funny that day how like one person's experience with one person can tarnish like a whole group.
100%, bro.
But I think we see that in life like all the time. You know, different occupations and jobs that like stereotyped a certain way.
Like if they say, oh, I'm a lawyer, like, oh.
Because
if you've had a bad experience with a lawyer, oh, you're one of those guys. But yeah, so I think the grassroots, man, and the club rugby in Brisbane is awesome. The club rugby in Sydney is awesome. The club rugby
Shoot Shield in Sydney?
Yeah, Shoot.
What's it called in Queensland?
Just Premier Grade Rugby. But in Melbourne, it's bad. Like it's like some teams don't have it under 18, some teams don't have a Colts. So it's like it's missing something in Melbourne. But like Melbourne's dominated by AFL, Aussie rules.
AFL's huge in Melbourne.
Mate, it's like football back in soccer back in England. Yeah. So like, like for instance, a team from Melbourne Storm, they've won how many premierships? You'll never see them in the front page of the paper.
Yeah.
It's AFL, back page. They'll have like a section of Storm that week if they've won the grand final, but then everything's just back to AFL, Aussie rules. So I think Aussie rugby have always been in competition, and I think that's why there's no NPC. There was like a they called it the NRC, but they just lost so much money. Yeah. And so like,
and it wasn't a bad product either.
No,
the games were good to watch.
Yeah, it was good, but like, it was probably they probably compared it to the NPC here, and it was just like, oh man, I don't think if NRC came and played the NPC, I don't know, the NPC will always probably win because of how strong the competition is, the talent pool, and all that stuff. So
yeah, well, a lot of our like NPC teams here, like the top ones, when they're in good form and on a roll,
yeah,
and to be fair, you look at Canterbury and Tasman, they field Super Rugby teams.
Yeah.
So you're trotting out these teams of that caliber, and you're getting to play teams like that during competition that's not Super Rugby.
Yeah.
All it's doing is making all the rest of the country better.
100%.
You know, because they're getting a chance to test themselves against
Yeah.
the best. And you talk about it there in terms of going back and playing club rugby, and that's something that misses here in New Zealand at the moment. There's too much of a disconnect. Yes, we have NPC, which is really good and a really strong competition, but we're lacking that the underneath part of that, like club footy is dying in New Zealand because which is sad. Like school rugby's strong, provincial rugby's strong. Well, strong. It's a strong product.
Yeah,
the supporters and the sponsorship's not there. That's more heavily focused into Super Rugby, so there's not big crowds, but it's still a hell of a product.
Yeah.
And it's very, very high level games.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of financial stability in it.
Gotcha.
But that sort of club level's losing it because we don't get those top guys coming back and playing club rugby.
Yeah.
Like I always have had a strong connection back to my club because I don't know, it's just the way I was brought up. I was brought up proud to be where I was from. Yeah. I'm lucky that my team that I play club rugby for and have my whole professional career is my hometown. So that means something to me to go back.
Yeah.
It's not like, I moved to Hamilton and then I'm going to play for that team.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually playing for where I come from, which adds another layer to it, right?
Yeah,
like it means something to you when it's your hometown that you're representing. And you're representing your family and your friends, and you get to play along some of your childhood friends that you grew up playing the game with them when you very first started as 5-year-olds, and then you get to play together.
That's cool,
and then you're coming from a professional environment down into that. If it means something to you, you add a little bit more and you give back a bit more, just like you're saying and going up and greeting. That means something to players, and it means something to
the club.
And it inspires people.
Yeah.
We talk about the Olympics being on at the moment. There's what's going on there is just creating dreams in all these kids around the world. 100%. They'll be watching that and going, I want to be him one day. I want to be her one day. I want to do, I'm going to be a weightlifter. I'm going to do trampoline. I'm going to do, it's just giving idols. But when you go, yes, you can see that on TV, but when you can actually touch it, then you can shake somebody's hand and have a conversation, and then they help you with your game, it adds a whole nother level.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, and to be honest, like even when you're playing against someone, like when you go back to play club, and then they have an all right game against you, then it makes them go,
"Oh, I could make it."
I'm actually not too bad. Like if he's here and he's played however many games super, maybe I'm just not that far, and it just gives them a little boost. But like, I'll never know.
They train a bit harder, and put a bit more time.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not saying I'm changing their lives, but like at least when you go back and you give back, that's what giving back is all about. Not just to the club, but maybe to the guy that you're versing, and you're just like you shake him shake the hand after the game, go for a beer, get to know him, and blah blah blah, and then they'll be like, sweet, now I know where I stand.
Yeah,
and then I don't know, you might see them. 3-4 years later.
Well, I think of that and think about our professional careers.
Yeah.
So how many times have we had that happen with players that play above us, right?
100%.
So like go in and play, and then he plays for the Wallabies.
Yeah.
And, I just outplayed him.
Yeah.
It makes you feel a bit better. You push that little bit harder. It's like, man, I could be a Wallaby.
Yeah.
He's a Wallaby. I got a better of him today, or I was as good, if not better.
Yeah.
Or if I train a little bit harder, and all of a sudden it becomes reachable.
Yeah.
And you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
I reckon I can give this a crack. And that's what keeps dreams alive is hope. Like if there's no hope, then it's like, it's just a dream.
So I guess it is important, like you said, like just to keep that club, because that's where it all starts, doesn't it? Like that grassroots, like that's where, the parents Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoon games, like people want to watch, I just thought like in Australia, I think that's why the club was so strong because
It had to be.
it had to be because there was nothing between club and super. So like, if you like I said before, if you didn't play super, you went and played club, which sounds like I don't know. It's in some countries they're just like, man, you never. But when I played in the UK, man, if you didn't play for that weekend, you had the weekend off because there was no. You've got the Premiership, then you got the Championship, and then you got Nat 1, Nat 2. So it's almost like just different layers. But if you're contracted to Harlequins or you're contracted
You
to
play for
Bath,
Harlequins.
you play for Harlequins because it's a whole different competition when it comes to the Championship rugby. And if you're insured by here and then you play here, okay, you have to pay for your own insurance because we didn't tell you to go play for the Championship rugby or the club rugby and stuff. So I felt sorry for the young players because they almost became professional trainers.
Yeah.
Because they just never got picked because it's a squad of 40 or 45 and like they just trained. Oh, I'm not picked this weekend. Okay, cool. Get on the piss. Come Monday, train. Get on the and that was their kind of routine, and it was quite like.
And I reckon that's a big part of what holds. I wouldn't say holds. Well, no, I suppose you can say holds them back because if you think of the infrastructure and the money that goes into European teams versus Southern Hemisphere, they should dominate us.
100%
constantly in terms of resource, player numbers, the sponsorship deals, the salaries that the players get. They should wipe the floor with the Southern Hemisphere teams, but they don't. And a big part of it's probably that because during that development stage of becoming a professional, they're not playing.
No.
So they're effectively building up, for a system, playing some rugby, get noticed, get in, but not quite ready to make it yet.
Yeah.
You basically pause their career for 2 years.
Pretty much.
And they don't play.
Yeah.
And they might have a couple of trots in preseason and this and that, but they're not getting that week in, week out.
Nah. And so, like, when it comes to, like, contract negotiations after 2 years, they're like, how many games you play? Like, I had no opportunity because there was someone else. And just
did you sign Ben Tapuai?
But it's
that's
crazy.
part of it though, right? Yeah. It's
but
like
the thing is,
come in.
but I think that's the difference, like you said. Like, if I wasn't getting picked in Super Rugby because Anthony Fainga'a'a was always getting picked at number 12, all right, sweet, I'll go play back same. But at least
you can play.
At least you can play it. Maybe it's not the same level that you want to be playing. Like the Reds are playing, the Chiefs, but you're playing Sunnybank versus whoever. Like it's not the same, but at least you still get the consistency of like 80 minutes and going in and like passing the ball under pressure. Like you push yourself. And because you come back from a professional environment, you always gonna push yourself that even more because you've trained because like guys have to work, but when you're professional, like that's your work. So you're expected to kind of dominate or to do better. And if you didn't,
is that clear and obvious in Aussie? So when these super guys are going back into that club level, are they just hands down?
Yeah, I think so. But like
you can just see, you're like, oh yeah,
yeah. But it does make sense because like those guys,
they're given the opportunity to, right?
And there's there's tradies that like and clubs only Tuesday, Thursday nights.
Yeah.
So
plus they're doing 40, 50 hour weeks of labour.
Exactly. So like we have Friday off. Mate, they're 9 to 5 working, and then they come to the game.
They probably
have
a few jars.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, 100% for Friday after work, and then they come in, see them with a V can, like it's just
ready
like,
to go.
You're ready to go, and you're just like, man, this is it. That's their livelihood. That's how they have to do it.
There's real beauty in like amateur sport though, and I love it for the fact that they choose to be there.
Yeah,
I think. Too often, and something that I've seen more and more come through in terms of professional rugby here in New Zealand now is people do it because they want to be somebody, not because they love it. Like sometimes I just want to grab some of them, shake them, and just like, bro, do you remember when you used to love rugby? Because at the moment now, all you give a shit about is how many followers you got, how many likes you're getting, and what the photos look like after the game that you can share on your gram or Facebook or whatever. And it's like
it's different
just
these days, bro.
Yeah, think about the beauty of the game and put your phone down, sit in the changing shed and have a beer and have a laugh.
And actually look up.
Yeah, like down to each other. So that was something I never thought I'd have to do in my career, but we'd banned cell phones from the changing room
Yeah.
after a game.
True.
Yeah, for the Mulus, because it was just creeping in more and more.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was all consuming and the boys didn't get off their phones, but it was, erring on the side of, it's probably too much. We should be enjoying this
Everyone's
camaraderie
company,
and company of each other, and we've worked hard all week. Let's have a beer and enjoy what's just gone on, win or lose, have a vent, get it out, or, celebrate milestones and all that kind of thing. Like, it was just really making a point that to be present in the moment. After a game.
It's quite different, bro, because I think our generation, we didn't have, our phones back in the days the chat was, what's your high score in Snake?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that was it. Like, there was no, like, picture phones. There was no Instagram. And if you did have, like, Facebook or something, you had to actually go to a computer to actually type it in. And
it
so
was more accessible.
Now it's more
right
accessible.
there. Yeah.
Man, the generation these days, everyone's all about the gram.
Yeah.
Everyone's all about the followers and the likes. And but that's just how it is these days, eh? Like, and it is quite sad, but like,
it's sad, but it has a lot of positives too. Like, I think about it in terms of being able to keep in touch and to, we talked about dreams before and being able to touch it, see it, feel it. Like, social media gives that aspect to, there's a lot of, very successful high-level athletes, businessmen or whatever that are very open and like willing to communicate and share their ideas and how they're feeling and whatever. People reach out through social media and then they respond and they go, like, this is what I focus on. And, that to that person, it might mean, it's 20 seconds out of their day to reply, but that reply
means the world.
That means the world to that person receiving that. Yeah. And that's pretty cool, like, and it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for social media, because you'd have to wait to cross paths with that person. And when's that going to happen?
If
you go watch a game and you try and ask them a real in-depth question when they're signing autographs, they're not going to answer you.
No,
but you just might get them on the right day that they check it and go, actually, I'll respond to that. Like, and that's something that I try and do, is always respond. If I don't have heaps of followers and heaps of people hounding me about stuff, but if I do get a nice comment or some feedback on the podcast and things, I always make sure that I make an effort to message back and to make it like personal, 100%. Not just be like, thanks mate, or just send a thumbs up, be like, thanks for the feedback. If you enjoyed that episode, then you really like Ben Tapuai or whatever. So it's like adding a bit more to it, because it takes 5 seconds or 20 seconds to respond to that. But for somebody to pick up their phone and make a conscious effort to reach out to you and then say, mate, I really enjoyed that podcast, takes a lot more than for you to say, thanks, mate, I really appreciate it. Yeah. Like, it's a big, it's a big step 100%. For them to risk being rejected or left on scene or whatever.
100%.
Yeah. And I think part of that is how you're brought up, right? If you're brought up in terms of being respectful to others and things like that, then you're more inclined to respond.
It's just, I guess it just transfers into your life, and like, you've got kids and I've got a little one now, so it's like you want to teach them how to be like that, because you know what happens if you're not like that, and you like how you are now. It's a testament to who you are.
Well, we might as well talk about having the little one. So Harrison, how old's Harrison now?
He's 15 months.
Yeah, and he's meeting family for the first time.
Yeah, bro. So
the joys of having a baby in the middle of a pandemic on the other side of the world.
Man. So as you know, the UK lockdown started at the same time as probably everyone. It was like February, March last year. And UK it was tough, man. It was tough. It was tough to go through.
Like,
it
was really bad.
Well, like we had,
still is.
We had, like, it got to that stage where it was like I'd say like 90, 100,000 cases a day, with it started creeping up to like almost 1,000 deaths a day, and like seeing that made me go, I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it was like I
think we get frustrated
risk.
with it here. We're talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Like we get frustrated here with like lockdowns and things. And,
Yeah.
I wish COVID would piss off so I can travel overseas
Yeah.
again. But we're just so sheltered from
Yeah.
what it's really like
Yeah.
and how bad it can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was quite a big eye opener because chatting to family back in Australia, like everyone was still walking around, and I'm just like, "What are you doing?" Like,
Get it.
yeah, I know. What are you, man? This COVID, this is bad. And they're like, "Oh, we've only had like blah 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 cases," and I was just like, "Oh man, you guys." And we wouldn't have arguments, but I'll just be like, "Man, I don't know why you guys are risking it because like when we had when we had Harrison, it was almost like we like a week before Harrison, they just changed the rules in the hospitals that your partner can be in the same
present.
room,
Yeah.
be present. So 2 weeks before, whoever had babies had to do it by themselves
Oh, whoa.
or just with the nurses.
Was there a lot of anxiety for Hannah? around
Yeah,
that?
man. It was like pretty like it was a pretty fertile bloody household in the Tapuai house because it was like she was going crazy because she was just like, man, like I need you there. I was just like, well, the rules are
because there's no one
I can't-
else.
Yeah, I was just
Either,
yeah.
right? It's only the two of you.
So like my parents are based in Melbourne. Like my brothers and sisters are all based in Australia. Her family's based in Hamilton. So like it was just me and her. And then luckily, man, like when they changed the rules, like it was man, I was glad that I was all part of it and all that stuff. Harrison was born at 5:45 in the morning, and by 8:00, the nurse was like, "Okay, Dad, you got to go." And I was like, "Go where?" They're like, "Oh, you got to go because COVID." And I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh, sweet, far out." And I was just carrying him, and I was like FaceTiming, so I was on a high.
Yeah.
Man, I was just like, man, this is like unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the greatest day of your life.
Bro,
right?
hard out. And I was just like, at 8:00, I was like going home. I was on the high, and I was just like sitting at home. And I was just like twiddling my thumbs because I was like, what do I do now? Like,
I'm a dad, but
like I only had 2 hours to hold him, and so that was
it would have been hard for Hannah too, like a new mum and what women go through with birth.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine having to put my body through that.
Bro,
and then, but then, having a baby and it's like you've never done it before.
Yeah, 100%.
And everyone always says, "Oh yeah, your life's going to change," but you don't know how it's going to change until you get that baby.
And you can't explain it to anyone unless they go through that process.
Yeah.
So like when I was at home, like because he was born at 5:45, they were like, "Oh, you can maybe pick him up if he's still all sweet. You can pick him up at 5:45 at night." And I was like, hearing other boys had babies, I was like, man, I've never heard anyone go from 12 hours that day because everyone's in there for like 4 or 5 nights because they can.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh no, because he was like born light, we're just gonna keep him in and just assist Hannah and like breastfeeding and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, when can I pick them up? Or because I was expecting, I don't know, 3-4 days because hearing the other stories. Or I was like, can I come visit tomorrow? And they were like, I got a phone call the next day, like, oh, just come pick them up at 12:30. So like the next day, and I was just like, oh, okay, sweet. But I think Hannah was like ready to go.
Yeah, she just wanted to get out.
She didn't want to be. She didn't want to be alone anymore, and like, she was just like, even though the nurses were there to help and stuff, she just wanted me there. So yeah, I picked him up at 12:30 the next day, and it was almost like good luck. Bro, and that was like, it was tough, bro.
Text messages to mum and mate.
Yeah,
like,
hard
what
out.
do we do now?
Hard out, man. It was tough, man. But, I'm glad I went through it that way because, like, we just toughed it out.
Yeah.
And, like, it was hard, like, not introducing Harrison to, like my family. Like, Harrison hasn't met my mum and dad yet or any, like, he only met one of my first cousins that lived not too far from Hamilton, but he's off to Wellington today. So he was the first person in my family that he met. But yeah, it was like we celebrated Christmas. Man, I'll never forget. Christmas was a tough day because like we were supposed to have Christmas with our Aussie friends that moved over from the UK. They played at different clubs. And then on the 21st of December, the government was like, we're on lockdown. And that was a fourth lockdown. And Hannah was just like, we got to get out of
We're
here.
out here.
But we,
Meanwhile, we're all back here having barbecues
bro,
and at the
hard
beach.
out.
And,
But like the Aussies that we were supposed to have COVID with, they still had their party because they were all from one club.
oh, so they're in that little
In their bubble.
Oh,
But they caught COVID.
oh, true.
Yes. So we're all kind of glad that we didn't go over.
Yeah.
Like, because like after like on Boxing Day and because in Europe, you still got games. You play over Christmas, you play over New Year's.
Yeah. Same as Japan.
Yeah.
It's the
So
same,
like we had a game, and like lucky I didn't go over because the rules over there was like if you had a game, you had to forfeit.
oh,
The winners get 4 points. The team that catches COVID or whatever or has to
It's
forfeit,
nothing.
they get 2.
oh yeah.
So like far out. Lucky I didn't go because like around New Year's and stuff, we had games, and I was just like, you didn't want to be that person
Yeah.
bringing COVID into the team and then affecting everyone because like it was
Like,
just
you
normal,
didn't stick to the rules.
bro. It was like normal training, like, but we got tested every 2 days or every 3 days. So like up the nose, down the mouth, bro. By week 7, you got used to it, but the first bit, man, that was tough. And like I think it was tough on Hannah because being a new time mum, not having family around, and that whole saying of like it takes a village to raise a child, bro.
It's true.
100%, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was tough. But like I said before, man, I'm glad that we did it, and in a way that way it wasn't like our fault that it had to be that way, but we just had to tough it out. But I'm glad that I'm here and we got family now, and man,
Yeah, because you talk. We talked about it earlier in terms of being a product of, your situation, and then just being able to adapt. Yeah, and that was exactly it. It's like all your parents now, and then it's like, oh well, you're actually on your own. Like figure it out. Away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do, right? Like as humans, you're
bro.
just like,
And
you're not going to give up as a parent, so you just work it out.
And like I think that's what rugby kind of taught me as well in terms of like mindset. Like all the cards were, this is in front of us. No parents. We're in COVID. We're in lockdown. Hannah hasn't been out in 4 months. There's no like, you hear kids of like, oh yeah, we chucked him in a gym class, swimming. None of that was available. So we had to keep Harrison entertained the whole time, trying to do different stuff. We just chucked TV on because that's all. There was no classes, no nothing.
Yeah.
So like, and you can tell now, like the kids his age that we've met, like you can see the different learnings of where Harrison's like at and where, say, a kid that we've met next door, that's younger but can kind of do more because they've been interacting with adults, and where Harrison's only been interacting with like us and our French bulldog back at home. Yeah. And then the first time, I'll never forget it, the first time, it's probably around like February this year, I took Harrison into, because we were still on lockdown, our 4th lockdown over there, I took Harrison into physio. Bro, he bawled his eyes out for like
just seeing other people.
Minutes. Yeah, because he was looking, he was just like, his eyes were like wide open. Another person walked in and like looked at them, cried. Another person walked in, looked at them, cried, like didn't want to know anyone. And he was like 7 months. Yeah. 8 months. And he was just like, man. And I'm looking next door, 8 months is like starting to wave and like
interact.
Like,
wants to be around people.
Wants to be around people. But that's, I mean, I don't blame Harrison because that was a situation. He doesn't know, but that was a situation.
Can't blame you and Hannah either, right?
But that's what I mean. Yeah. You can't. So it was tough, man. And I'm just glad.
All those people come out of the TV.
But yeah, it was tough, man. But like I said, I'm glad I kind of went through that, and like we look back now and just like glad that we got through the toughness, because
Yeah.
like if that's the worst part of life, like we've
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
Of parenthood,
Yeah.
like we've done it. So like if we
Yeah.
have like more children now, like
Yeah.
we just know what to do, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
It's quite similar to like Cooper wasn't born in a pandemic, but Cooper was born in the window month during November, so he's
Yeah.
born right at the end of November.
Yeah.
In Japan, you have the month of November off for the test window.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Cooper was born, so we just born at the end of November, 28th of November. So we decided to have him back here in New Zealand, being the first. And,
Yeah.
you know, we're a bit kind of like, oh, but then knowing what we know, like Mason, he was born in Japan. Like knowing what we know now, we would have had Cooper there as well.
Oh,
Like
okay. Yeah.
their medical care and like hospital care is
Yeah, it's unreal,
phenomenal
eh?
for
Yeah.
like new parents. And
But
um,
you just don't know that.
no, but you don't know what
yeah.
you don't know, right? So yeah, Coop was born back here, and then I left when he was 3 days old,
Oh,
and
hey.
then came back when he was like 8 or 9 weeks. So missed like first Christmas, first, you know, like that
Shucks.
nice
Yeah.
holiday period. Like I didn't have a Christmas with my family for. I had my brothers, my two youngest brothers, come over and had Christmas with me, and maybe my second or third year that I was in Japan. But it was like 7 Christmases or something that I hadn't had
Oh, hey.
in a Christmas with my family. So that was, and then that was kind of in the middle of that period. So that
Yeah.
hit quite hard, being in Japan and not, you know, not having
yeah.
Marie and Cooper there. And then like Marie, same thing. She got, you know, newborn, and then she was gonna stay at the farm with her mum and dad. And yeah, her dad, he's passed away now, Barry, but he had cancer, but he was in remission. But the day Cooper was born, he found out from the doctors that his cancer had come back. So he literally like up and had to go to Auckland for treatment. He had leukemia, so they tried the whole bone marrow transplant and all of that.
Yeah.
So we went from this plan of like, oh yeah, it'll be better for you to be in New Zealand because you're going to be supported by, you know, you're going to have your mum and
all that
dad there,
stuff.
you
Yeah.
can be at the farm, and we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what it's going to be
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
Japan and the
yeah,
rest
yeah.
of it. So,
Yeah.
and you can't really talk to like a midwife, and
Yeah.
Marie's Japanese wasn't very
'cause
good,
of
and
the-
like just
language
we just
barriers, yeah.
thought like this would be better, but it turns out then Marie was on the farm in the middle of like Aotearoa, which is kind of between Tukaro and Taupo,
Yeah.
by herself with a newborn baby, trying to figure it out like on her own. And like I have so much respect for her for what she did
had to go
through that period. Yeah.
bro.
And then you know, I even look back now and think like I got grumpy at times because she didn't FaceTime me because I wanted to see him and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But then I think back
That's
now
tough.
and in
Yeah.
hindsight of,
Yeah.
and take the emotion out of it of how I was feeling at that time. But I'm like, what I went through was nothing compared to what it would
Yeah.
have been like for her.
Yeah. Hard
Yeah.
hell.
So it's it's I kind of, well, I don't know in terms of your
No, but like
situation,
yeah.
but like I
Yeah.
know what it's like
Yeah.
for it to be, especially when it's your first. Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty hard to get on a plane 3 days after
Yeah.
and be like, if
Ah.
someone gave me the option and said, oh, you can get rid of your contract for the rest of this year to stay, and you won't get paid from now through until you come
So
back
you come
next
back,
year,
yeah.
I would have probably said, yep,
Yeah.
I'll sign it just
Yeah.
to stay. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it was
yeah.
pretty hard to get on that plane.
Hard out.
Yeah.
Especially with the newborn, bro.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah.
oh, bro.
Oh, let's talk about the Premiership. So you talk about the four for the win. 4 points for the win on a forfeit.
Yeah.
And then 2 points for what was in terms of getting into the playoffs with Harlequins.
Yeah.
How much you get in by?
No,
you
no.
got
So,
COVID, would you have missed out?
no. So it changed. So that was at Christmas time.
Oh, okay.
So it changed, like literally about 2 months coming out to the top 4.
Yep.
If you had COVID, and if you made top 4, you had COVID, you forfeit. You're done.
Oh,
That's it. You're out. So there wasn't the 15 coming up to the 4th
yeah.
or the 6th. There's just like that team goes through to the grand final, or
Yeah.
because
Was that around the time that you had the Christmas party planned, or
no. So the
was
top
that sort of
no.
earlier?
It was a bit later. Yeah. So
Oh yeah, because you would.
Yeah.
When was the final?
End of June.
End of June.
End of June. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
so
about
it's like,
4
yeah.
4 weeks
That would
ago,
have been
5
halfway
weeks
through
ago.
the season.
Yeah, so like halfway through the season, they said that because we were doing all the testings and stuff. I don't know, maybe it was easier to catch it back then, so they just said, "Oh, 4 points for the win, 2 points if you had COVID." Yeah, but then as everyone started getting vaccinated, they changed the rules to if you do get COVID, you just forfeit your match, like, and the person gets 5 points or 4 points or whatever
And you
it
get
is,
nothing.
and you get nothing. So
Was there much of that happening? The mini games have
yeah,
that outcome?
a couple of games around Christmas time some teams had to forfeit, but they picked up 2 points, so it was like wasn't the worst thing. But leading into the semi-finals, the last round game, Bristol were playing London Irish, and London Irish got like 20, 22 or 20, 25 COVID positive cases when they did their testing. So Bristol automatically, I mean, they would have finished first anyway, but London Irish had to forfeit. They had a week off. We played Newcastle in the last round, and then we played Bristol the week after. So the top four was decided with about 3 rounds to go.
Oh, yeah,
So
that was
the
pretty
fifth,
clear
yeah,
cut.
so it was pretty clear. So the fifth, but the year before, if someone got COVID and in the top four, the next team just comes up.
Yep.
And then they just cut that out this season. So just to make it easier and just like black and white, you get COVID, you're out.
Yeah.
So
And I suppose it would have made all the teams be a lot more cautious
Yeah,
of the way
and
they
like-
were too,
yeah,
right?
so like-
Which is a good thing
Yeah,
for the sport.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it was hard because like everyone's got friends in the UK. So like if everyone wanted to catch up to go to a pub, they'll be like, "Oh man, I don't know. if I
Sorry.
can." Sorry,
Can't
bro."
get-
Like,
yeah.
because you don't want to be that person. So leading into the finals,
FaceTime me.
leading into the finals, the top four. So 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3. So we were fourth. Bristol were first. Yeah, man, that's probably like that game against Bristol is probably it's up there with a highlight of my career, just in terms of like the
And that's a semi-final,
yeah, the semi-final. Just the team they had versus the team we had. Like they had a lot of players from New Zealand, like that. The Piatel brothers,
Stephen Luatua there
Stephen
too. Yeah.
Luatua, Chris Vui, Semi Raja, and then they had like lots of Welsh and English internationals as well. So yeah, man, first 25 minutes, they just scored 4 tries straight up. And to be honest, bro, like going into the final, when you're fourth, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna put up a fight. But like if this happens, you're gonna fold or you know what I mean? But like it was actually quite funny because we scored just like, no, it was 28-7 at halftime, so we just scored at halftime. And literally, man, like our chat was just like, just focus on next 5 minutes, next job, bang. All right, we scored a try. Next 5 minutes, bang, we scored a try. And then it went into extra time. And then extra time, which never happens, it's like 10 minutes each way. Bro, we just, I don't know, we found another gear because, and I think it helped probably because like Bristol they didn't forfeit, the other team forfeited, so they didn't play the week before. But it was just 100 minutes of rugby, bro, and it was just like, it was tough.
There's a golden point in that extra time, or no, you got to play the 20
you got to
minutes
play
out.
the 20 minutes out.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
And then if it's a draw after that, is it a kickoff?
yeah, it would have been a kickoff.
That's like,
It would have
because
been,
I've seen that before in Europe, like in
yeah,
the UK.
but this was years
ago.
that
Yeah, I
happened.
haven't seen one for a while.
Yeah, so like,
They had locks and shit.
yeah,
kicking.
so I think it's.
Do you have to have a forward?
Yeah, I think it's 3 backs and 2 forwards. I think.
Yeah,
I actually didn't know.
it's out of it.
But
Eh?
I was just like, man, if this goes into drop kicks,
It's
man,
like a
this will be-
super over in the cricket,
bro. Hard out, bro.
Yeah.
So it's just it was like, and when we won, that was like, oh, we can actually like
We could win.
win this if we want to. And like leading into the grand final, so like because we played 100 minutes, like we were spent. So like our physios called the England physios and said, all right, you guys beat the All Blacks in the World Cup final, what did you do wrong? And they're like, man, Eddie smashed the boys that week.
Yeah.
Even though like it was only 80 minutes, but like it was probably one of the hardest 80 minutes that England played. But like Eddie like just went hard, went with normal training. So our training that week, bro, we walked on Monday, we walked on Tuesday, and we jogged on Thursday.
Yeah.
Like we didn't even like. So like we felt kind of like weird because like, as you know, bro, like you want combinations to work, so you got to run full speed.
Yeah.
And our coaches were like, when if you go past 30%, I want to take you off.
Yeah.
So that was our training, bro. And like, so we train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. No captain's run Friday.
Captain's run.
No captain's run. We just see you on Saturday, bro. So we got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off.
Yeah.
Thursday's your last training session, and then no captain's run. And we'll see you at the game, bro. Well, to be honest, I was nervous, bro, because I was like, we haven't done anything, bro.
Yeah.
Like no combination. Like no, it's not like it's the same moves.
Yeah.
It's the same whatever.
It's the same shit
you're doing for the whole thing. And so that was our talk before the.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I know
we've done this.
A lot of boys are nervous because we didn't train that well. But like, how many times have we run this move?
Yeah.
How many times have we run that move? Doesn't matter who's in or who's out.
Yeah. We know.
Everyone knows, and it just made us realize that. And it took us, to be honest, it took me to the Barbarians moment, bro. It's like, oh yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because you're so worked up, you're so serious about what you didn't do, like that week. Yeah. And you just like
sometimes you forget what you've done.
Right? Yeah. And you're just
like,
like,
oh, actually,
we've done this. Like, and because the season goes from September to June, you're just like, we've probably run this move over 100 times. Like Exeter probably know we're going to run the same move.
Yeah, they would have watched the tape. They know it's coming.
So it just made us realize, and like, to be honest, mate, it made us. It probably like we were fresh. Not even though we played like the week before. Like when it came to Saturday, you can tell the last 20 minutes. If we got flogged, not flogged. If we did a normal training week, I think we probably wouldn't have lasted that. So like the medical team probably stepped up in that sense and just went, yeah, no, we're only gonna walk. I know it's a grand final, but they told the coaches. Walk Monday, walk Tuesday, jog Thursday.
Yeah, and playing 80 minutes on 100 minutes.
Yeah, like and like props playing 100 minutes, 95 minutes. Like it was crazy, bro.
Yeah.
And because like I only say that because over in the UK it's like very heavily forward orientated. Like scrums, lineouts are like
everything,
bro. Yeah, like if you don't have a strong like scrum or lineout, then. It'll be a tough day or tough year, I think.
Yeah. How did you find that transition going over to the UK? Did it frustrate you a lot to start with?
Yeah, a little bit because of what you've done and what you've experienced, but like
and the way you want to play.
But like man, some great advice from Carl Heyman on the Barbars, bro. He's just like, if you come over to the UK or you go to any new club, the best advice that he got was just like, don't bring of what you've experienced, just adapt to the culture, adapt to the thing. So like, if you throw a miss pass one this way, but the English do it another way, just do it that way, because like you'll go mentally insane. Like in your head, you're like, man, what the hell did these guys do this? You know what I mean?
It's like Japan.
Yeah, but like he just said, just adapt and you just crack on, bro. Because like you'll find your stuff easier. And I was just like, I didn't think of that at the start because I was at the force and I was just like, oh, yeah, fair enough. But then like when I went to Bath and I knew like different moves, we run it differently to here, and I was just like, okay, cool, sweet. I'll just do it that way. And I'm glad I did it that way because like if I did it the way that we've been taught here, you almost look like the outsider, or you almost look like you know more. Do you know what I mean? So like that's why I really enjoyed my time in the UK, because I just adapted to whatever kind of they did it. And if I said, oh, back in Aussie we ran it this way, but like if you tweak a few things, we can run it, or we just run normally. What is up to you? Just so like everyone's on one page. So you didn't want to be like, oh man, this move sucks. I don't want to, because we've run it back like this. But like, it's just different rugby, different thing, man.
Yeah. There's like real power in that though. I find that and it's something that I talk about a lot with other players, and especially guys that haven't been at the professional level, so like playing club rugby and stuff. I was like, it doesn't matter what move we run, as long as we all know it and we all run our lines in the way that we want to do it. If we're all on the same page, it's a win.
Yeah.
And it does. You can play the most simple game plan, but if all of you do the exact, all of you know exactly what everyone else is up to, and what the bigger goal is here, and that we're doing this because this is the outcome we want.
Yeah.
You could do just about anything, and it will work.
Bro.
Like, because it's that power of the group. It's the power of like being united and being connected, and through that you build trust and relationships.
Yeah.
And then when shit does go wrong and it's a different picture comes or whatever, you can adapt to that.
Yeah.
And not only you will adapt, but the whole group will, because you're all thinking the same way.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's weird, but all right, we'll just do
We'll
it like
just do
this.
it this way. And then you're right, yep, sweet, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And because when you got that like camaraderie and like that trust, man, it's powerful. And like even when like I've been in teams where like, you know, especially in Europe, like you know what move's coming, but you still have to stop it.
Yeah.
And when they
and it frustrates you,
and it frustrates you because you can't, because it's like
literally every back move works. There's a gap somewhere.
We talked about it all week, guys. Let's defend. Okay, we'll defend this move. They're gonna run it, and you call it out.
Yeah.
And they're laughing because you're like, yeah, we're gonna run that move.
Yeah.
And then they pick a different option, or they do this.
Yeah, they just play where the space is.
And you're just like, far out. That's it.
Yeah.
But then when you're a part of it, it's like it's powerful.
That's what I love about rugby.
Yeah.
So like for me, all my most enjoyable moments that I have is when, like, it's cool to score a try at times and to do something that maybe no one else could have done in that situation. You know, that's pretty cool, and that's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But for me, there's nothing like that feeling of getting one over the opposition as a group.
Yeah.
So it's like going out into, for the Mulus, my last 3 years, we just had such a strong culture, especially in our back unit. And then as a team in 2018, I don't think I've ever played in a team culture as tight as what that group was.
True.
And no doubt that's why we won the championship. But in terms of that culture as a backline, like Roger Randall, he was our backs coach, like he built that in us. And he was real big on that. And everything we did was for a bigger purpose. Like everybody had a role within that. And if you were selfish and you didn't run those lines, it didn't matter how good you were, he wouldn't pick you.
Yeah.
Like, it was all about the team. And it was all about doing the selfless things, and the little things.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty in that when it comes off, because it comes off a lot more often than something magical does, because you're just all on that same page. Then it builds so much confidence. Yeah. And then and then it flows into all other aspects of your game.
100%. Yeah. And it's almost like, because when you practice all week and when you practice it, and then when you score, it's that smile. When you look at someone, you're like, you know what I mean? That nod, or you just
got you. Told you that were
hard out.
Like that move we had bloody against Samoa off the line out. One that came to me. What do we call it? I can't remember what we called it.
Bro.
We had the midfield scrum one.
The midfield scrum. Yeah.
Jack the Ripper.
That's what I was trying to think.
Bro, the Brumbies pulled that out in Super Rugby.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, against the Cheetahs, I think. From memory. It was like a year after. And I seen it, and I was like, Christian, you bastard. He stole my move.
That's
But I worked the 3 day. But that was the same thing. Like, we had that. The whole team was in on that move.
Yeah.
Like, we called it, I remember we called it on the field, and the reserves started cheering from the sideline because they knew it was coming. And then the way the forwards turned the scrum.
It was causing
Zaggy. And then Tomo slipped up and then grabbed onto it. And we had, Ben Robinson was playing prop bay.
Cat.
Cat. And then,
and
it
Zaggy
was epic.
Another. Yeah, bro.
Shipper scored, eh?
Yeah, on the corner. I just remember, like, when Shipper scored and we all turned to you. We all turned to you and was just like,
It worked, eh? We're like, I reckon we could do this and it will work. And hey, it was funny, though, because That was in our second week. We didn't do it
Yeah,
first. It was the second
no, it
week
was the
game.
second week. It was like the,
But it shows what that building it camaraderie and
it does in a week.
and culture from the week prior.
Yeah,
That I knew that I could make an outrageous
yeah.
It was a random thought that was in my head that I was like, I reckon this could work, and it was so out the gate. Like
Yeah.
it's too complex to
To
communicate over a podcast. But I'll try and find the highlight of it and I'll put it in the show notes on the website if I find it, and I'll put it on Instagram if I do find it. But yeah, it was just it was so complex and so much to it. But how everybody, like, not one person doubted it.
No.
And I was just like, oh, and a part of that is being able to explain your thoughts, like if you can explain it clearly. And I really thought about it before I opened my mouth because I don't want to look like an idiot. But then, and even then, I still thought I kind of came across like, bro, you're out the gate. But just that team is awesome because you can just say things and try things like that, and no one gives a no one gives a shit, right? It's just like, fuck it, let's have a crack.
Yeah, but that's what the Barbarians is about, like coming up with moves like that, and just like if it pulls off, bro, it pulls off. If it doesn't, he's like, oh well,
firework the treat,
bro, hard out, man. And because they Worcester were coming back for their preseason camp, and so like I remember talking to Cooper Vuna because he was there at the time.
That's right, yeah.
And he was just like, bro, because we won.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and because I remember him texting me, he's like, oh, when are you guys in town and blah, blah. I was just like, oh, we're staying in Cheltenham and whatnot. And they were just like, oh, I'll see you at the game. And then after the game, they were like, bro, man, we can smell your breath from like, and I was just like, yeah, bro, we've been on it in Cheltenham, man, like just having a few, just enjoying it. And this is like, man, our boys were like almost like not scared, but they were just like had a bit of a fear, like coming up against us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, but then he was just like, man, these guys have been on they've been on the juice for the last.
They've been on the piss for 2 weeks.
I said, I don't know what you think, but man, I just remember cracking up about that move, bro. I was just like 1-0.
Yeah, but that team's so good for that, eh?
Yeah.
And it just shows that culture. Like if you can build an environment, anyone listening out there, if you want to get into coaching, first thing you need to do is build a culture, and then because then your players will do what you ask of them, and you'll pull the really good information out of the group.
Yep.
That's what I always find. Like I've been doing a bit of coaching, and then I have a lot of rugby knowledge, but one thing I will say is that there's always a different way to do things.
Yeah.
And like you say about the UK, I noticed that in Japan too.
Yeah.
And if it's easier for one person to adapt than the other 14, then you go with the one person adapting rather than changing just because you think the New Zealand way or the Australian way is the right way. Yeah.
100%. That was the biggest lesson I learned, and I'm kind of glad because I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm stubborn, but like if I want to get my point across, I try and hammer it and be like, this is why it works. But then like at the end of the day, bro, like everyone's played rugby for ages and they just run it that way. It's not a bad way. It's just how they done it. And for me, the reason why I enjoyed it is because I almost learned a new way of rugby. So
looking at the game,
and like the UK rugby, because of the weather, you can't play Super Rugby styles because it's like raining sideways, cold. Like man, there's games where I've frozen my nuts off, man, and it's like 6-0, 9-0, but like the main thing, and everyone will be like, oh, it's boring rugby, but the main thing I took out of that is just like, yeah, but like we won, like we knew how to win. It was shit conditions. Oh, sorry, it was like crap conditions. There wasn't much rugby played, 1,000 scrums, 1,000 lineouts, whatever, mauls, but
you did a better than
we
the opposition.
we found a way to win. And so I think it probably creates a mindset of the UK rugby is just like, okay, if we have to win 6-0, we're gonna win 6-0. We're gonna win 9-0, we're gonna win 9-0. Because that's just how all we need, because no one looks back on the wins and
looks at the scores.
Looks at the scores. Everyone just concentrates on the wins. And
you win the Premiership.
When you're in the top 4, that's what it comes down to, because you had to grind for the 6-0s, the 9-0s, the 1,000 scrums. So like that's what made me look at UK rugby like, okay, yes, everyone's saying this, but what's
What
a
really
good way?
matters,
Yeah,
yeah.
what's a good way of looking at it? And it's just that's all it is. Everyone just toughs it out because it's a long season. Your body, you have to run through like brick walls, man. And in those conditions, you have to sacrifice your skills and what you know and all that stuff just to try and be better for yourself and for the team.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we struggle with big time here in New Zealand is we always talk about it. Oh, you need to learn you got to learn how to win ugly, but we just don't accept it here.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. But that's. I think that's Southern Hemisphere rugby though.
Yeah. It's just you won 9. Like the All Blacks win 9-0. It's a disgrace.
Yeah,
the whole country would be up in arms. But it's like they just won a Test match.
Yeah,
you know, like against a good team.
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah,
and it was bad conditions. But even if it was bad conditions, they'd be expecting the All Blacks to score 4 tries.
It's the expectation.
Yeah, the expectation. No, you got to score 4 tries.
Yeah.
You're the best of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that because the All Blacks have been so dominant for so long, it's something that our public doesn't put into perspective sometimes.
No.
It doesn't give enough respect to the oppositions because rugby is a complex game, and like I look at Fiji and the way that Fiji played against the All Blacks was awesome, outstanding.
Yeah,
and I know a lot of people straight off the bat to start with were like, oh man, the All Blacks played like terrible.
Yeah.
But Fiji didn't allow them to play well.
Exactly.
But it's not until a few expert people with knowledge come out and say, oh, Fiji were outstanding. They did this really well and that really well. And it's coming through the media that people go, oh, it was mean that Fiji played me. But straight off the bat, those same people will go dogging on the All Blacks. But it's like, but Europe has done wonders for those, for the Pacific Island nations. Like, Super Rugby helps them as well, and the Pacific Island, or you're Pacific Islander, but you grew up in Australia, but being able to play in the Super Rugby competition. But what happens with that is they end up playing you come play for New Zealand, like Sevu Reece plays for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Kurandrani plays for Australia.
Yeah.
So yes, we're helping develop them, but we're developing them into our teams. But what you're noticing with Europe is those guys, especially the forwards, they're playing in that. They've still got that bit of Fijian flair, but it's not everything that they are anymore.
Yeah.
And now you got these big men that are powerful, strong, with good technique because they're playing in a more confrontational game in Europe. It's slower, more impacts. It's more about tackle jackal, getting on the ball.
Yeah.
And that's done wonders for their game.
Yeah.
Where if they were playing here in New Zealand, they would still be free flowing, offloading. I wouldn't have that skill that they've gained from the Northern Hemisphere.
It's just different styles of rugby, and that's what I was saying before. Like, I had to look at a way where, I can learn. And you're always learning. I think as a rugby player, and even as a coach, or even as anyone, you're always learning a new style, or you're always learning how to adapt to different thing. And like now, I'm off to South Africa in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
So now I'm looking at it, I was like, okay, now I'm looking at a new way of how, now the Sharks run moves. It could be the moves where I learnt 10 years ago when I was at the Reds and at the Force, but
Jack the Ripper.
I've been used to this way for 5 years. So like now I have to put my muscle memory back then. But I don't know.
Is that what you love about the game though? Because for me, that's what I love about it, is that you can rugby is a game where you can constantly learn, and it evolves and it changes, and all body shapes and sizes
100%.
can play it and have a place.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a lot of sports where the fat kid can play, the tall, lanky kid can play, the fast kid can play.
And be good at it.
Yeah, and be good and be like
not just play for
not
the
just
sake of
play,
it, for
participate,
the sake of it.
like be a professional and
be dominant in your position and stuff.
And be a country icon.
Yeah.
Like be the best in the country at a certain thing. Like it's
100%.
there's not many sports that accommodate that vast array of body type, shape, skills, speed, fitness levels
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like everything else
100%.
is pretty even playing field. You look at a hockey team or a soccer team.
Yeah, they're all one.
They all need to run except the goalie, like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's not many sports out there, but like, but that's why I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like with I think being in the UK, like soccer is like
Huge, eh?
man, I don't know. Like even the fans are crazy. Like it's just a whole different world out there. But like, yeah, I think going back to like Durban, I think it's important that like, and I think when I go back to what Carl Heyman said, but he got that information off Matt Burke when he was playing at Newcastle. Like when Matt Burke was here playing at Newcastle with him, he was just like, just adapt, bro, and just enjoy it, because like there's no use of doing this. And you're just like, when he said that, I was just like, man, surely you've played that many games for New Zealand.
The best team in the world.
You can't be like, if someone says this, you can't be like that, because everyone will be asking you, how did you do it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But they obviously don't, though, eh?
Yeah, well, they just,
They can't ask them a lot.
Because they just...
Otherwise, it would have been like, oh, wait until they come to you.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, I'll just do it the way they
just
do it.
Yeah, so, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a different experience. But yeah, it was quite funny, because it was, man, jumping on the plane after the grand final, man, I was ready to play for the Moolers, bro.
Yeah.
That was the thing at the table.
That was what was going to happen.
That was what was going to happen, and yeah, when this
you look good in red, yellow.
When this, yeah, bro, I was excited, because I knew, like, my wife's from Hamilton, and
it would mean a lot to her and her family.
Yeah, her family,
that,
but also like my son's from Hamilton. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's half Kiwi, but he's from Hamilton, so like it would have been cool to see him in like a Moolers jersey, and like, my mother-in-law had my brother-in-law's little jersey ready.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, okay, we're doing this, but then like when this deal came through, it was kind of like, oh man, it's a 2-year deal. I mean, I'd love to play for the Moolers. So I had to like, me and my wife were like, we're just gonna like call it, which is like, nah, let's just, because we wanted to be so close with family that we've like haven't been involved with family for like 15 months now. And then now we have to go pack up and go again. But then it was almost the reality of like, if you say no to this deal, we regret it in 4 or 5 months. And because like, I guess, man, I would have loved to play for the Moolers, because it was only 3 months versus a 2-year deal. And like at the age of 32, there's not many opportunities that come to that. So,
yeah, and I think that's one thing that people say it a lot, but I know in New Zealand, like the professional window is so short.
oh man,
Like the average professional career when I started playing professionally was 2.5 years. That's it. So, you've obviously had a longer career than that. You're like a decade plus now, but that's credit to you, obviously, as a player and as a person, that you've been able to, play professionally for a decade.
Yeah.
But there's not many Ben Tapuais, or Liam Messams, these sort of guys that play, but they're the ones you remember because you see them a lot. You forget about all the 1 years that come and go during that time. Like I think of, and I thought about this a little while ago and started thinking about all the guys I played with just through my chess career that had like 1 season of professional rugby, or 2 if they were lucky, or maybe 3 at a push, and then you kind of like, there's a lot of those guys, but there's a very small group of, I think of like Liam, he's a good example, Brendan Leonard, Alan DeMelmonch. These are guys that were like my year, like era. We're all the same age. We all came through together. Yeah, like we all had long careers, but there was a lot of mates around us at the same time that played 1 or 2 or
three
came in and out. So
I think
it's a
it's
short window.
It is a short window, and I think that's what we had to decide in terms of after these 3 months with the Moolers, like, do we just
Call it
what do we
retire.
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
what do we do?
Well, that's basically what you're faced with, right?
Yeah.
Like you take basically every contract you take on, you got to be willing to retire at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because that's a real
That's the
possibility.
reality of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
100%.
well, and I know that we've already spoken about it. The financial of playing NPC here in New Zealand is not very good compared to what it would be like to play a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Being based, playing in a top level international competition like South Africa and it's a Pro 14 now.
Yeah, or Pro 18 now.
Pro 18 now. Yeah, that's right. It was Pro 14 before.
Yeah, because of
South Africa joined it. So that's
yeah.
a bit. That's a big tournament, and
Yeah.
it's it's got a lot more infrastructure and a lot more sponsorship and funny and money going into that to be able to fund it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot more stable decision to make, and if it gives you 2 more years, that's going to put you in a lot better position than what you'll be in after 3 months here.
Yeah.
And then if you got a major injury at 32, it's going to be
That's
very
it.
hard to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
Because by the time you do the rehab,
100%.
you're 33 going on 34.
And it's-
People are like, oh. Yeah, but you've just done an ACL or you've just had a shoulder reconstruction and you're 33, 34.
Yeah.
You need to prove it again first, but then where are you going to prove it?
Exactly, because like no one's in this day and age. 10 years ago, if you were 30, you were classed as like experienced.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Or
now,
you're about to hang the boots up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or not. So like now, I think it's like when you're 32, 33, and looking for a contract, you're just like, man, you're gonna have to accept almost anything or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because that's just the reality. Because now
I find you're
18
like older players a bit more, Than
I think
definitely
so.
like Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. Like in
It's
Aussie, they're always banging on about the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And then like there's a guy that's 25, 26 that's been sitting there.
Yeah,
for
killing
ages.
it.
But then they just pick the young
Yeah.
guys because they want to develop the young guys. And then that guy just kind of, he doesn't just give up, but like, he's just like, oh, I might as well go overseas. And like, you kind of feel for that because like now, I don't know.
Well, that's your position, right?
Yeah, but that's just
that would have been why you went overseas.
pretty much.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I wasn't getting picked for the Wallabies again. And it was like it was a tough call because 2011, 2012, I played Wallabies. 2013, I didn't make Wallabies. But then I got called into the Lions. So like, it was like I was in and out 2013, but then 2014 I didn't make it. 2015 I didn't make it, and I was just like, I had the attitude of, and it's my fault. Like I had the attitude of like, because I'm a like easygoing guy, and I have this attitude of, oh, it's all right, I'll make it next year.
Yeah.
2014 came, hey, I'll make it next year. 2015 came, oh, you sweet, I'll still sign in Aussie. I'll make it. And then it wasn't until like my wife was just like, man, she told me like when we're not going to get, and I just had to come to the realization of like, it's only a short career. Like and then that's when we decided to kind of move to the UK. But yeah, I think that was just how looking back now, was kind of my attitude wasn't probably the right attitude. I was just almost like, yeah, I should make it because I played Wallabies 2011, 2012 and just keep going through, but it just didn't happen. So that was pretty much my main reason why I left because of the Aussie jersey just wasn't in reach anymore. So, but that's not got to do no coaches. I don't blame anyone, or that was just how my attitude towards that was just that's how it was.
Yeah, it's just timing, right?
Yeah,
like, yeah. That's a big thing, and that's something that people need to understand too, is the position that players are in.
Yeah,
like it is, and we know that, right? We know that it's cutthroat because we live in that environment. We see how good everybody is. We see how good our teammates are. With our trained eye, we can see when someone, a young fella looks pretty gun, and he's like, oh yeah, he might be quite handy. So you're constantly living in that pressure. You know that it's cutthroat. You know that there's pressure there, and that's what kind of drives you to keep pushing to get through. But and then players have got to think about security and moving forward. Like I would have loved to have seen you play for Waikato, but as a person, I'd rather see you and Hannah in a better financial position and a more stable position and with some security than I would just to see you put on like a particular jersey.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing we do here in New Zealand a lot is we always talk, it's about the jersey.
Yeah.
But it actually isn't about the jersey. It's about, it can't be about the jersey because we get, like New Zealand players get blinded by a jersey because we're so patriotic and passionate. But I think it's I know it's a huge part of why we are good though.
Yeah.
As well. Like that one jersey keeps the best players in the world here for a quarter of the money that they could make offshore for the dream.
100%.
For the dream to put on that black jersey.
Yeah.
There's so many people that, you know, I think about it. I played like a long time. I could have left earlier and made more money. But I was hanging on to that dream because I wanted that chance.
Yeah.
And that was a big part around why I made my decision to go. And I've talked about that before on the podcast. But that one jersey, that holds so many people here. And it's the same for me. Like the Mooloo's jersey, it was the same. And the Chiefs jersey was the same because I was so heavily connected to it. I grew
100%.
up, you know, watching it, watching the teams play all the time. And I'd go down to it was Rugby Park when I was a kid, but then became the stadium.
Yeah.
And that draws you in. But I think as players, we have to be careful that we don't get too blinded by loyalty. Yeah. Because I've seen it now. I've seen my situation that I've come through. Yeah. The organization's not loyal to you. When your time's done, your time is done. You know, and they don't give a shit.
When they just wipe their hands, thanks for your services.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, not even that. Like, you know.
Sometimes. In a nice way, that's how they are. Like, it might be cutthroat in terms of like, see you later. But like at the end of the day, when it's your time, because it's a business. And when you got a business and you've got like a younger product or a younger guy coming through, they probably want to develop them more than what because they know that you're at that stage in terms of like, okay, you're getting on now. So
well, New Zealand rugby is very much focused that way. It's like that. It's like when I'm pretty certain for a fact when they look at a player, if there's two players that are like, you know, one might be slightly better, but he's 4 or 5 years older. Yeah, they'll pick the younger guy every time because they've got like, we'll get another 4 or 5 years out of him. Yeah, him we might get 2 or 3. Yeah, this guy we could get 8. He could be Damien McKenzie. Yeah, or Anton Leonard-Brown or Sam Cane or you know that's 100%. But we're kind of spoiled with that situation because of the depth that we do have, and we keep finding another Damien McKenzie and a Sam Cane. But there's a lot of very good rugby players in New Zealand that don't even get to play professionally or play minimal, like because NPC is not even professional. Like they train as hard as a professional, if not harder, but they all work. Yeah. Like if you don't play Super Rugby, you're not pro. Yeah. You don't make enough money. Like $40,000 a year is the most the player will get paid at Waikato. Generally, you know, like I was captain, played 100 games, I was on 40 grand. So it's not big money. You can't survive off that. I had to have another job as well. So, and then, that's what I chose to do though, because I wanted to keep playing and I didn't want to look offshore again because I wasn't at that part of my life. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's been there and done. But that's the reality of it all, isn't it? Like, and I think like, I don't know. I think when people come to realize like when you talk about it and you hear stories, you're just like, oh yeah, that won't happen to me because when you're younger. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because you're just a bit naive about it all, and then like when you live it and you think, then you're just like, oh, I remember when this guy said this. Yeah. 5-10 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, that felt like yesterday.
Yeah, I
know. Yeah, it definitely goes pretty fast. Yeah, we've covered heaps of mean content in here. We'll, might wrap it up with some few like sort of quick fire questions, I suppose. What have we got here? We've talked a lot about the friendships that rugby forms, but in terms of that, your high school sort of time, was there a lot of guys that you sort of met in that period of your life that and played with that, or even became friends with those farmer boys or whatever.
Yeah.
That you kind of took along on your journey, like whether they played or didn't play, but you stayed. You know, they were big fans, or not big fans, but just good mates.
Good mates.
Really
man. Like
in what you were doing.
To be honest, we were quite lucky in our first 15 year. We had like a few boys that I played with, all especially the Reds. Like, we were all from Queensland. But like a lot of it doesn't happen in Australia much. But like that team that we won in 2011. There was 22 back then. Probably like 17 of them. We all came through the schoolboy system.
Oh yeah.
So like the Queensland schoolboy system, bar like 3 or 4. Like we had like Radiki Samu, the twins, and then one other. But
where
like,
were the twins from?
Canberra.
Oh, they're Canberra boys.
Yeah. So like, but like probably like four of us came from that first 15 side that when we finished school. Yeah.
Who was that?
So Rob Simmons.
Oh yeah.
The lock. James Slipper.
Oh yeah.
Me and a guy called John and Lance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we all finished the same year at school.
Yeah.
In our first 15 years. So, so it was quite cool to go through that journey. But back then, you didn't really appreciate that, like, because you're young. You're just like. Yeah, I play rugby. You go through the cycle of like every day.
You get on the treadmill, right?
Yeah, bro, and you just run. And you forget about other. You just keep going. And I didn't really appreciate what a premiership meant until I won the one 4 weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
because it's been 10 years since I last won a trophy, like a proper trophy. So you like back then you're just like. I'm gonna win.
We did it.
I'm gonna win about 4 or 5 because I'm 21. I just won my first premiership. I'm gonna the average age then was like 24, 25.
Yeah,
so
the young team, mate.
Yeah, young team, bro. So it was almost like we're gonna win heaps, and like 10 years later, it didn't happen. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of that's what made me appreciate like what a trophy meant and how much you got to grind. But yeah, I still keep in contact with a lot of the guys. So like some of the guys moved over to the UK for like their occupation or their work, which was cool. And like we still talk about the school days and all that. And that's the beauty of, I guess, everyone has their different paths. And then when you meet, like, you know, one guy's in the UK, one guy's in Europe, and we're in the UK for rugby and all that stuff. It's quite cool to still keep in contact and still joke around what you did back, what is it, like 15 years ago now?
Yeah, well, it's, what did we work out the other day? It's 20, next year I've been out of high school for 20 years because we had that Boys High Foundation dinner the other night, and we were thinking like, what? 2 decades? Like, where's that gone? Because it feels like yesterday you're at school, right?
Yeah, 100.
And I've seen all my mates again that we were all the same year. One of the boys bought his law firm bought a table, and the boys all jumped on there.
Yeah.
And then, you just... and everyone's still the same jokes from high school coming back. It's but it's just, and it's a real formative time of your life, right? You learn so much through high school in terms of who you are as a person and who you want to spend time with and who you gravitate towards and friends and that. And I think it's probably why parents have such a big, you know, they're not that keen on you hanging out with dickheads when you're at high school. They don't really care at primary, but when you sort of get to high school, it's like, well, get away. I remember the few conversations from my parents to get away from certain guys that I was spending time with because they didn't like the kind of road that they were going down, and they were like, "Oh, you should spend more time with such and such or such and such." Yeah. So it is and sport's another thing for that, right? The friendships that it forms, and I think a part of that is because you're just in this, especially when you're talking professional level, it's like a baptism of fire. Like you're under a lot of pressure constantly. Yeah. The only other people that know really what you're going through are your teammates that are there. Yep. So you just share so much and you share that burden with each other. And, you know, when someone's going through a tough time, you step in and you support them and you help them. And then they do the same for you. And then that forms like a real special bond.
100%, bro.
Yeah.
100%.
We didn't have many tough times, but we formed a good bond in 2 weeks, you know.
It just goes a long way. But like I think it's probably changed like these days in terms of like just the way you communicate. Like now, man, remember back in the days, like we used to get grilled by the older blokes, but you took it. You took it. But if we did that now to kids these days, it's a whole. Yeah, bro. You just
they go and tell on
I'm
you.
a bit sensitive now. It's a bit sensitive.
Like,
yeah,
Coach, Benny told me off. Like, good.
But that's what I mean. Like, now you got to adapt a different way of how to treat the young guys now, because it's just a whole different generation.
Yeah, it's interesting that though. I talked about this. I went on a podcast the other day, and we're talking about it. But we always yes, we need to be mindful of how we speak to other people. I think there's definitely bullying, and then there's expectations. Like there's different things.
Yeah, 100%.
And we as humans, that's one good skill I gained out of sport, I reckon, is being able to take criticism and take learnings, and to be able to detract emotion from the direct words sometimes. Yeah. Yes, like it didn't always handle it the best all the time, but through it happening, I just kind of learnt, and you kind of evolve with it. You're like, okay, I can't do that. Like I got to be better here. Or I got to stay more focused, or I need to run that line.
Yeah. Because
it's really important to us going forward, or I need to stay focused here, or I need to be in that position. Like it's like you're accountable to an action, or you're
100%.
accountable to something that's bigger than yourself. And we talk a lot now, and you see it a lot with the younger players. Like you can't talk to them like that. You can't be so direct and whatever. But in terms of when shit hits the fan, everyone in the world wants to be with an SAS soldier, but they don't talk nice to each other. They tell each other what needs to be done.
Yeah,
like
direct.
They won't bully, but they'll be very direct of like, this is what is expected of you.
Yeah.
And if you don't meet that standard, you don't fit in. So I think in high performance sport, we need to be like, and I think that's what the best players do, right? And the guys that have long careers, they can take the criticism, process it without emotion, or when they are emotional, they just go and deal with that and they vent it somewhere that they feel comfortable and safe. And I think that's a real healthy practice.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I had people that I would go to and vent shit, and most of the time they would just listen, but I was probably, I was wrong on a lot of times, I'm sure, but they didn't say that because they just knew I need to get it off my chest. And then once you kind of do that, you can process, okay, what's the action from here?
Yeah.
All right, I need to improve in this area, and then away you go and you focus on that, and then you carry on. You get back on the treadmill and you start running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's different. It's different these days, bro, because like I don't know. It must be a generational thing, because like you said, bro, like if someone grilled you, if an older person grilled you, you just took it, and you just had no talking back, no thingy, and especially as a Pacific Islander, like I'll never talk back to
a senior,
because if they told me, you're like, okay, you've been here, I know you're older and whatnot, so you go with it, and you never got like hurt by it, because it was coming from a good place, or that's how I thought anyway. But now it's like, oh man, if I ever grilled a young guy, like he'll talk back straight to me, and I'll be like, whoa.
Yeah.
But you have to realize, like, man, these kids are different. Like, so like, what's the best way to try and talk to them? Because like that way didn't work. All right, what's another way? You just have to find a way.
Yeah, well, because I find too now, like we want everybody to, and it's a big part of culture, is being able to feel like your voice can be heard and feel like you're a part of it. But you don't need to. What I find is you don't need to talk to feel to be a part of it.
Yeah.
You just need to understand.
Understand it, yeah.
And there's certain people that are leaders, and there's certain people that can deliver a message, and then there's certain people that need to listen and learn that way.
Yeah.
And that's what I find now is a lot of the younger players in New Zealand are talking because they think that talking is the way to show that they understand. But quite often they shoot themselves in the foot because they talk and they're talking about the wrong thing, and their coach knows it, and the senior players know it, but they can't say anything because they don't want to be seen too harsh.
Yeah.
So then that kid just doesn't play.
Yeah.
Because the senior players know and the coach knows, like, oh shit, he's on the wrong page.
Yeah.
But because you don't want to be direct and say, no, that's not what we're focusing on. You've got it wrong.
Yeah.
It needs to be focused this way. You can't say that. But what people are more mindful and they don't say that, that kid just keeps talking or coming into team situations and sharing because he thinks that's the way to show that I understand. But they're talking instead of listening. Where, you know, when I was younger, like I was brought up, like I said, I was brought up like you to respect your elders. You go in and senior players say something, you listen. And I had some dickhead senior players that bullied. They weren't, like I could take stern words, but there were certain guys that I have no time for because they were bullies. Yeah. It was different, you know. They weren't being stern, they were just being assholes. And they used to do it to certain players. Yeah. And you could see the difference of when they spoke to, you know, like me and someone else compared to how they spoke to Richie. Yeah. You know, Richard Kahui or Liam, because they were like somebody when they turned up, you know. It was like they kind of burst on the scene and it's like, they saw them at their level where they didn't see, you know, maybe some of us at their level. And so there's definitely a difference in bullying and being stern, but you need to, you know, you need to be able to, if you want to compete at the highest level, then you need to be able to take criticism without emotion and process it and then move on.
100%, bro. 100.
What else have we got here? Oh, we've talked a lot. I suppose we've talked quite a bit about travel in terms of where the game's kind of taken you. Yeah. Close friends, keeping in touch. Playing with Rex, winning that club title. Yeah. Can you, like, did you get to play in the final?
Yep.
When you and your bro won that title? What was that like?
Man, it was like it's just a whole different level. And I think when I talk back to how important clubland was, like going back and like that was awesome. But like playing with blood is different to playing with mates. Do you know what I mean?
It
so
is
like,
yeah.
So it's like it's just that it means more. And I think Rex was also a professional rugby player. He trained at the Waratahs. He had a 2-year contract at Waratahs, went to Japan afterwards, played for NTT Docomo.
Oh, yeah.
But they were in second div back when he was playing.
What years was he over there?
2005 to 2007.
Oh, yeah.
And then played in Italy for I can't remember. It wasn't any other like Benetton or Treviso. It was just like a club team there. Did that. So he kind of knew. So it like going through the the contracts and going through like my Reds career, he kind of like guided me of like because he'd been through. He didn't say pick this or pick that. It was just like these are your options, like pros and cons here, pros and cons there. So he kind of knew what the deal was. But yeah, man, that grand final was like I don't know. It just meant more that year only because I played with my older brother, and I ended up playing like 4 years with him.
Work it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, me and my younger brother. So I've got I've got 3 younger brothers, but my next one down from me, Paul, is 2 years younger. We played a lot of rugby together. Yeah. So we played first 15 together at school.
Oh, true.
Yeah, so his first year in the first 15 was my last.
Your last year.
So that was the first time I ever got to play with blood, with my brother. Yeah. And that was special, man. Like same thing. I was like, whoa. And we actually, that team, I think we had 3 sets of brothers.
Oh, true.
Yeah, and they're all playing first 15 together. So there was myself and my brother Paul. Then there was Anthony and Sam Christie. Sam Christie played for the Western Force.
Yeah.
So Sam and his older brother Anthony was my year. He was a really good rugby player. Anthony was, but Sam was a bit more focused and driven. Yeah. Anthony was probably a bit more naturally talented, but didn't really have the drive. Yeah. And then we had the hippie twins, so Shannon and Shanley. Yeah. Yeah, they were. And then I was trying to think. Oh, and the Thomas brothers. And now we have 4 sets. Yeah, Dale and Josh Thomas as well. Hey. So yeah, we have 4 sets of brothers all in the.
That's unheard of, team. Man.
Yeah, their first 15 levels. So that was unheard of. It was pretty special. It was pretty cool. But yeah, you can definitely. There is something different about it, and that was a big part of why I loved going back and playing for Morrinsville too, because my brother played for Morrinsville, for a long time, and it was pretty pretty cool to play with him. And then I played with my youngest brother also. So there's only Brian that I missed out playing with, but Hayden as well, the youngest one. I played a bit with him too. But in talking about like that with like playing with blood, I think that's why the Maldives is so special.
Yeah.
That team is so special because you play for something bigger than you.
Bigger than you, bro.
Yeah.
100%.
And yes, like the All Blacks is cool. Like it's bigger than you, but all those players aren't bound by blood.
Yeah.
You know, like when you really boil it down.
When you take all the stuff away.
You take all the stuff away.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you represent your country. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's phenomenal. Well, you know, it's the best of the best, right? Especially in terms of rugby in New Zealand, to play for the All Blacks is massive.
Yeah.
But to play for something that is who you're born to be, and what you're born into is different. Like
100%.
you're there because of your blood,
because
of what runs through your veins, not
Yeah.
because of where you choose to live your life.
Yeah.
It's where your, you know, like your heritage and
and
I'm sure that's something I often think about too, because you see the Pacific Island nations and the way that they are together and how strong culture is and your upbringings that you see in that real, like I'll say mana, but use a Māori word because I don't know what it would be in Fijian or Tongan or Samoan, but you know that real mana and that respect that comes through the culture and there must be so much power in those teams in terms of that culture and that connectivity and playing for something that's bigger than them.
Yeah, I think if you look at even in rugby league, I don't know if you know rugby league, but that Jason Taumalo didn't play for the Kiwis when he chose for Tonga because he knew it was something bigger than him. He was born. Yes, he was raised in Australia or whatnot, but he was born to Tongan parents.
Yeah.
So you obviously can, like, rugby league, like, you can choose, obviously, to go play for different countries, but he's come and said himself, like, it's a different buzz when you go to play for Tonga. And he, like, made other players around Australia do the same thing. Or he's done, like, what?
They wanted to be a part of it, eh?
but no one else... Before that,
no one else thought that way.
If you played in Australia, you go play for the Kangaroos. If you played in New Zealand, you go play for the Kiwis.
Yeah.
So like, that was the way. But like, it just goes to show like what it means to like the small, and it's because of the small nations you're bonded more. I think. Yeah. That's my opinion. Like,
well, and then I look at it with you, right? Like you're born and bred in Australia.
Yeah.
But if you were in a Wallaby and then you ended up getting the opportunity to play for Samoa, that would mean so much to you because of it's your heritage, it's who you are, it's what you're born into.
100%. I'll do it if the rules were allowed. I'll do it in a heartbeat. Yeah, I'll pay for my own fare. I'll do whatever. But obviously the IRB rules are like you can't do that.
They govern
which
that,
which is fine. Like if that's the rules, that's the rules. But like if the opportunity came in, I'll do it. But I'll have to get picked first, obviously. Yeah. But like I would absolutely do it only because I know what it will mean. Not only to me, but I know what it means to my old man, to my mum, to everyone in my family, and it just it will go a long way. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right. So, we've been yarning for a while there, but I just want to thank you very much for coming on, Ben. It's pretty awesome to hear your journey and to hear what it was like for you, and especially I've always been really intrigued about the Australian system and what that's like. I'm very interested in all different sorts of sports and avenues that athletes take to get to where they are and where they've come from. So it was really cool, and thanks so much for coming on and sharing that with us, mate.
Thank you, bro. It's been awesome to I guess catch up again after a few years, but man, I learned a lot about the New Zealand system as well, and your journey as well, which is cool. Yeah. So thanks for having me, bro.
Is there any little gem you want to leave the listeners with? So any young aspiring footy players or athletes out there?
Oh man,
one key focus that you use in your career?
I think probably playing it over the years. I just don't die wondering, bro. Just go for it, man. And if you fail, at least you went for it. At least you had a crack. But yeah, Die wondering.
Yeah, nice.
No
I like
regrets.
that. No regrets. Full send. Cool. Shot, brother.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.